7 agonizing years of loyalty, only to be cast aside. Jihan Yu was betrayed by my own guild, but they are clueless, blind to the true power sleeping within me, and their regret will be swift and absolute. 7 years, squandered in service to the Kuros Guild. I was their living shield, the bulwark between them and certain death all, so the team's geniuses could claim all the glory. In the heart of the boss battle, my shield splintered and my bones screamed for release as I faced the beast alone. My calls for help met with deafening silence. Instead of support, I was met with stares of utter indifference. The moment the monster crashed to the floor, the false masks of my so-called friends fell right along with it. Guts, our leader, discarded me right there amidst the wreckage under a cold rain that seemed to mock my very soul. Their cruelty was absolute. Kim Hunai spat the words failure and dead weight at me. Sun mocked my pathetic state, while Mia Lee stared at me like I was a disgusting insect. My reward for 7 years of devotion, a pitiful 10 million won. For reference, 10 million won is barely $7,000. 7 years of my life gone for pocket change. In that moment, I finally understood. I was never their comrade, only a tool to be used and thrown away. But fate, it seems, has a twisted sense of humor. At the absolute peak of my despair, something inside me awakened. My vision fractured into glowing green grids and probability calculations. A hack on reality itself guided me to the small, unassuming epic guild. There, the impossible happened. Silf, an elemental spirit of wind dormant for 12 years, chose me. It was a cataclysmic explosion of mana that lit up the entire Butin skyline. I was no longer the man who took the blows so others could win. I was reborn as a wind elementalist. Our hero had just unlocked a unique ability, the legendary elemental class. This grants him the sacred power to commune with ancient spirits and wield their incredible skills. In this world, hunters with such contracts are known as elementalists. They are incredibly rare and universally feared. A single one of them holds enough power to rival an entire guild. The legends speak of them. First, Luca Harrison from England, the elementalist of mist. Next is Molasai Soifua from Samoa, the formidable elementalist of water. And finally, Abu Bakr from Egypt, the mighty elementalist of sand. Each of these warriors exists on a completely different level of power. And now a new legend has been born. Back at the guild house, Kim is still on the floor from the sheer force of the explosion, while Jihan stands firm, holding a glowing green sphere of pure energy. Behind him, the silhouettes of the other legendary elementalists appear, foreshadowing the path of vengeance that lies ahead. Jihan's newfound power is revealed the mastery of wind. The scene shifts back to the guild's main office. Jihan is completely bewildered, demanding to know what just happened. Sitting on the sofa, Kim begins to explain the unbelievable truth. He asks if he truly forged a contract with an elemental spirit. She simply nods, confirming the impossible. Kim reveals that Silf is an ancient being who commands the power of wind itself. She then drops another bombshell. Silf once had a contract with her late mother, making it a profound mystery why the spirit would choose Jihan now. He stammers, insisting he can't accept this power, and asks if there's a way to break the contract. But Kim delivers the harsh news. It is impossible. Once Silf chooses a master, the bond is eternal and cannot be undone. She reveals the one and only way the contract can be broken is if the master dies. Jihan is left standing in stunned silence. Feeling completely overwhelmed, Jihan asks what he is supposed to do. Kim crosses her legs, a playful smile gracing her lips as she rises to her feet. She congratulates him for officially joining the Epic Guild, then casually asks if he even looked at any others. Our hero answers without hesitation, stating that he never considered another option. His heart was set only on joining Epic. Hearing this, Kim blushes a deep red and tells him he has excellent judgment. The stunning guildmaster smiles warmly, promising to help him master Silf's incredible powers. Kim is surprised by his sudden intensity. He declares he wants to put his new abilities to the test immediately. Overflowing with excitement, he summons a swirling green orb into his hand and proclaims it's time to raid a monster area. That term refers to specific zones marked by a massive blue dome that are crawling with monsters. These areas are ranked from 5 to 1, with the creatures inside matching the zone's difficulty. And so Kim and our hero set off to begin his training and explore his boundless potential. Holding his sword high, our protagonist announces their destination, the rank 5 monster area in Bian. Jihan is confident in his system's analysis, stating this is the perfect location to test his newfound skills. Kim, however, looks incredibly nervous as she scans their surroundings. He asks if something is wrong. She sheepishly admits a startling secret: she has never actually trained inside a monster area before and is frankly terrified. Jihan is completely shocked by this revelation and asks why she kept it from him. Kim confesses that for a guild leader, it's a deeply embarrassing truth to admit. As they step into the danger zone, our hero decides he will be the one to take the lead. With his sword drawn and Kim clutching her staff for dear life, they venture deeper into the hostile territory. They navigate through the debris of past battles between hunters and beasts. Jihan asks Kim to scan the area for any threats. She tells him to give her a moment. Kim checks her radar and reports that their first target is a cockatrice. Seha explains the creature was nesting nearby. Apparently, a truck overturned 2 weeks ago, scattering its young across the area. Jihan draws his sword, a smirk playing on his lips. These things would be perfect targets to test his new abilities. Surrounded by rubble and ruin, the atmosphere shifts completely. This is a war zone, a place where blood is spilled and fear takes hold. Realizing it's just the two of them, Jihan knows what must be done. He declares he'll act as both the tank and the damage dealer. But Seha senses a chill in the air. Something is terribly wrong. They press forward until she detects movement in a nearby parking lot. There, lurking behind a car, a cockatrice is enjoying its afternoon meal. The monster spots them but doesn't drop its food. Instead, it spreads its wings wide. A crushing pressure suddenly bears down on both of them. They brace themselves for the attack. Jihan quickly tells Seha to guard his back while he faces the monster head-on. The creature takes a single step, and its immense weight makes the very ground tremble. It charges them, raising a massive claw to strike, showing off its terrifying power. Jihan raises his sword, blocking the attack just in time. A grin spreads across his face. He was no longer the weakling he used to be. Still holding off the attack, Jihan yells out to Seha. Standing behind him, she begins to gather a powerful spell. Her eyes glow as she unleashes an attack called Wind Arrow. The projectile slams into both Jihan and the cockatrice, blowing them apart and shaking the entire area. The monster crashes hard into the ground, cracking the earth beneath it. A truly stunning display of Seha's incredible power. Jihan recovers and praises her magnificent shot. She smirks, revealing that despite her appearance, she graduated first in her academy. But their banter is cut short as a flock of more cockatrices swoops in for an ambush. Seha senses them first and screams a warning that 3 of them are attacking from behind. He spins around and his green eye begins to blaze as his ability activates. The incoming monsters are caught in the glowing green lines of his power. A bright red danger signal flashes above their heads. The main character assesses the threats and speaks the name of his skill sampling. Then he asks the system to calculate all evasive maneuvers. A window pops into view. It displays the probability of dodging if he simply drops to the ground. As the monster lunges straight for him, his only move is to crouch. The window confirms the success rate was a staggering 82%. Looking at his hand, he summons that same green sphere from before. The name of his new skill is Haste. In a flash, every bird in the area is taken down. He moved between them like a ghost without a single scratch, leaving the monsters' heads on the ground as trophies. With his sword raised high, he looks back to see what his new abilities are truly capable of. Seha is in total shock at what she just witnessed. She says he managed to use Seal's abilities with perfect precision. She points out it has been less than a day since he got these skills and wonders how this is even possible. While he stands there striking a heroic pose, Seha asks if he is some kind of genius. The main character simply puts his sword away and calls out to her. He picks up some feathers for loot and tells her they are going to farm endlessly from now on. But as he's crouched down, he thinks this is a great way to test his powers. Suddenly, his skill activates on its own. He realizes something is still terribly wrong. He snaps around and screams at Seha to look behind her immediately. Another monster appears right behind her, this one far larger than the others. The tension skyrockets to a breaking point. The creature unleashes a powerful attack aimed right at Seha. The sound of the strike echoes like thunder. He manages to grab her just in time before she's crushed. With Seha held safely in his arms, the main character asks if she's all right. She confirms she is fine. They both ready their weapons, wondering why on earth a monster like that is even here. Jihan observes it closely and realizes this monster is a mutant. His green eye glows once more as his skill activates again. A system interface flashes into existence, crunching the numbers on their probability of flight, while a blinking danger sign appears right above the mutant bird. Jihan steps up to protect Seha and desperately asks her to stall the beast for just 1 minute. She is confused and asks what on earth he is planning to do. But he is already sprinting towards the danger, promising to make it quick. The creature powers up its talons with a strange dark energy. It dives straight at him, beak gaping and wings spread wide. As those deadly claws come down, Jihan grips his blade and screams the signal for Seha to fire. From the backline, Seha unleashes her magic. She hits the beast with slow wind. The spell works, binding the monster in place just long enough for Jihan to close the distance. The bird snaps at him, trying to land a hit, but the magic makes it too sluggish to connect. Jihan comes crashing down from above, driving his sword into the creature, but the binding spell starts to fracture. Just as he goes for the kill, the magic shatters completely. With a screech, the creature shatters its restraints instantly on the defensive. A tense standoff begins. The beast lunges forward, its massive beak wide open, but Jihan's blade is already a blur of motion. In that instant, the cruel taunts of his old team echo in his mind, the words, "dead weight," stinging like a fresh wound. Snap! The monster's jaws clamp down on empty air. His system interface flares from calm green to a hostile red. Jihan unleashes Wind Cutter. In the blink of an eye, the monstrous bird is carved into pieces. Jihan floats gently back to the solid ground. As the simulation fades, the camera focuses on a pair of feet nearby. It pans up to reveal a mountain of a man in a very loud Hawaiian shirt, his face a mask of genuine shock. He mutters in disbelief, having no idea another elementalist was active in this area. This is Doha, the legendary earth elementalist from Korea. The scene cuts away to a desolate, ruined city shrouded in gloom. The wind howls like a ghost through the rubble just before a building crumbles to dust. Suddenly, the ground itself explodes outward. A colossal monster with glowing red eyes erupts from below, leading a pack of heavily armored worms. Doha leaps directly into the fray, taunting the beast to come at him. He activates his provoke skill and smashes a worm just as it tries to tunnel to safety. His massive energy blast lands a direct hit. A thunderous explosion rocks the entire district. But even with his incredible strength, Doha struggles to keep the giant worm pinned down. He glances back, shouting for his team to attack, now warning that his grip is failing fast. Seon Lim calmly enters her casting stance. Watching the meathead wrestle the monster, she declares she has the perfect spell for this. Locking onto the swarm, she unleashes her power, Chain of Thunder. A torrent of raw lightning arcs between the worms, causing the entire group to convulse in synchronized agony. Seon Lim watches with a smirk as the creatures twitch violently before bursting into dust. When the smoke clears, the air still crackles with static. She leans on her staff, bragging openly. She can't believe the team was ever afraid of such pathetic trash mobs. The muscular tank, however, isn't impressed. He warns her to watch her aim, snarling that she almost fried him along with the monsters. She fires back, telling him to stop whining and maybe go on a diet. He rolls his eyes, muttering, whatever. But before they can move on, a surviving worm lunges from the debris and ensnares her. Pure panic flashes across her face. She screams for someone to cover her, instinctively searching for Jihan to save her, just like he always did. Then the cold, hard truth crashes down on her. Jihan isn't in their guild anymore. There is no one to watch her back now. Just as fear paralyzes her, a figure tears through the sky, slamming into the worm with a single crushing blow. Seon Lim is stunned. As the dust settles, she sees the unmistakable red hair of Guts, the warrior who just saved her life. He strikes a casual pose, leaning on his greatsword as if it were nothing. Seon Lim breathes his name, her body weak with relief. The camera pans across the grim battlefield, littered with the corpses of worms slain by the Kuros Guild. Seon Lim and the tank lean against a broken wall, gasping for breath. She complains that her mana is completely depleted. The big guy frowns, saying these monsters felt different, almost like they were powerful mutants. Seon Lim scoffs at the very idea. She insists they were nothing special, just ordinary trash mobs. Suddenly, Guts steps before them, his voice cutting through the excuses. He says there was nothing unusual about the monsters at all. They were just giant worms, nothing more. Clenching his fists in simmering rage, Guts demands an answer. He punches the wall beside him, shattering it. Then why, he roars, did you struggle so hard against such basic enemies? The tank and Seon Lim both stammer, unable to form a coherent excuse for their terrible performance. All at once, a chilling shadow falls over them. They turn, their faces growing even more pale with fear. It's Mia. She's covered in blood from head to toe, looking like she just stepped out of a nightmare. She grips her dagger, her eyes glaring daggers. With a murderous gaze, she coldly announces that District 2 has been completely cleared. Guts whirls on her, shouting her name. He reminds her that his orders were specific. Do not overdo it. Veins pop on his forehead as he warns her through gritted teeth that there is nobody left to protect her if she gets into real trouble. But she just stares back, her gaze unwavering, and snaps that she is fully aware of their situation and doesn't need him to lecture her. The tank mutters Jihan's name under his breath, wondering where he went after they threw him out. For some reason, hearing that name makes Guts explode. He throws his hands up in pure fury, telling them to stop making pathetic excuses. He storms off, shouting that Jihan was nothing more than dead weight and they're better off without him. The scene then cuts back to the ruins. Jihan is standing there radiating an insane amount of power as he cultivates his newfound energy. In the background, Kay can only watch, trembling in absolute awe. Her eyes widened, completely stunned by the overwhelming aura pouring from him. In her mind, she was screaming. Jihan had just defeated a mutant monster, all by himself. Just what kind of monster had he become? He stood tall, brimming with confidence in his newfound power. His signature green eye glowed as he stared toward the horizon. But from the shadows, another figure was watching them. A stranger with a large backpack began walking directly toward Jihan and Seaha. He couldn't believe his eyes. Did those two really kill a mutant by themselves? A sinister grin spread across his face. This was definitely his lucky day. Seeing the aftermath of the battle, Seaha rushed to Jihan's side, asking if he was all right. But before he could even answer, his body gave out and he collapsed. Seaha panicked, lunging forward to catch him before he hit the hard ground. She tossed her staff aside, cradling him in her arms. She desperately pleaded with him to say something, terrified of being left all alone in this desolate place. "Jihan!" she screamed, her face etched with pure terror. Suddenly, Jihan's eyes snapped open with a creepy deadfish stare and an unnerving smile. He whispered, "The endless farming must continue." Instantly, Seaha's deep worry twisted into utter disgust. She realized he was fine, just completely obsessed. She dropped him flat on his back, annoyed that she had actually been worried. As they recovered on the ground, Seaha pointed out the obvious. They were looking at a mountain of monster meat, way too much for 2 people to possibly carry back. Jihan nodded in agreement. Just then, the man from the shadows finally stepped forward. He chimed in saying he could solve that little problem for them. He pulled off a pair of ski goggles, offering a friendly greeting to our main character and his companion. With his eyes closed like a classic anime character, he introduced himself. His name was Sa Ijang, but everyone called him Sashimi. He claimed to run a professional monster cleanup service. Seaha looked completely bewildered. She never even knew a job like that existed. Jihan explained it to her. These guys were professional specialists in butchering and transporting valuable monster parts. But Jihan wasn't so naive. He looked Sashimi dead in the eye and asked, "What's a cleaner doing this deep inside a dangerous MA zone?" Sashimi had his story ready. He claimed his company was just a startup forcing him to take bigger risks than the major guilds to turn a profit. He then asked if he could handle all the cockatrice remains for them. Seihe was visibly relieved. She was just glad someone showed up at the perfect time to do all the heavy lifting. Jihan, however, remained silent. He was deeply suspicious. Something felt completely wrong about this guy. Sashimi leaned back, waiting for an answer, totally unaware that Jihan had already marked him as a threat. Sashimi snapped on a pair of slick gloves, announcing he needed to inspect the goods first. He ran a hand over the massive corpse and let out an impressed whistle. The quality he remarked was absolutely top tier with incredibly clean and precise cuts. He told them that with this level of quality, they could sell the parts for an incredible price. Seaha was practically buzzing with excitement. She immediately started dreaming about getting a bigger apartment with all that money. Sashimi flashed a malicious grin that she couldn't see. He told them to go ahead and keep all the money from the meat. But as he spoke, his hand quietly slid toward a glowing purple stone left behind by the mutant. He snatched it, thinking he was being clever. He would let them take the scraps while he made off with the real prize. The narrator reveals exactly what that rock is. It's a mana crystal. These rare gems only drop from mutants, and they are worth an absolute fortune. But before he could even pocket his prize, the area around them began to warp. Rocks started to lift from the ground, floating and swarming around Sashimi. He frantically looked around, wondering what in the world was happening. Seaha and our main character immediately dropped into their fighting stances. They were completely baffled by the sudden event. Meanwhile, Sashimi was now fully trapped by the floating boulders. He began screaming for help, shouting that he'd hand over the mana crystal if they would just let him go. Pure panic set in as a new voice echoed through the clearing. "This is precisely why I hate swindlers," the voice boomed. "Don't you know that stealing is wrong?" Seaha and Jihan stared in shock as the newcomer finally revealed himself. It was the ridiculously muscular man in the Hawaiian shirt. He walked slowly towards Sashimi veins bulging on his arms and calmly stated that the crystal belonged to him. Seaha stepped forward and asked in awe, "Are you Doha from the Dice Guild? The #1 hero in the world?" She couldn't understand what a legendary figure like him was doing in a place like this. But Jihan was not impressed at all. He clutched the mana crystal tightly, snapping that the item belonged to him, not Doha. "Is the rank 1 hero really stooping to mugging us?" he challenged. Doha simply replied that the association had sent him on a mission to kill the mutant and retrieve that very crystal. The two hunters glared, tension crackling in the air between them. Jihan's green eye began to glow intensely. He shot back. "And why should I care about the association's orders?" His special ability activated system windows flooded his vision, calculating his probability of winning against Doha. The ranker just put his hands behind his back and sighed. "It seems," he said, "you've misunderstood the situation." Jihan blinked, and in that single instant, Doha vanished from sight. In a flash, Doha materializes behind our hero. He hisses, "That wasn't a question, it was a command." A vicious slap cracks across Jihan's face. How could anyone move that fast? With no time to react, Jihan is cornered, his face about to be introduced to the ground. The man in the flip-flops grinds Jihan's head into the dirt, repeating that he was never asking for permission. Our protagonist glares back, his eyes screaming for a fight. Doha looks down on him, calling Jihan his new little elementalist, then viciously slams his head into the floor. Sashimi watches his face pale with terror. Of all the heroes in the world, they just had to stumble upon the absolute worst of them all. So who is this monster? This is Doha Guildmaster of Dice, and one of the top 5 ranked heroes in the entire country. He's an earth elementalist, the only one of his kind. A hero who wields the power of a living god. C raises her staff, screaming for Jihan to move, but Doha's warning is instant and ice cold. He tells her to be smart and stay out of it. One wrong move, and Jihan goes from a promising hero to a red stain on the floor. C feels utterly powerless. She bites her lip, knowing full well he isn't bluffing. Boiling with pure humiliation, Jihan slams his hands on the ground. He glares up, snarling, "Do you really think you can kill me?" Our protagonist is overflowing with rage. He screams that Doha is the one who's going to die here today. Jihan unleashes his wind bomb ability, blasting Doha away. Doha manages to throw up a guard, but the raw force sends him flying backwards. As he grinds to a halt, he wonders what in the world just happened. He was certain he'd crushed the kid's skull a second ago. Doha smirks, realizing this rookie is full of surprises. Jihan struggles back to his feet looking battered. Doha instantly figures out his trick. He summoned his elemental at the last possible second to take the hit. Not only that he concealed the spirit's presence to set up a devastating counterattack. Our protagonist is wounded, but he's far from broken. Doha just laughs, calling him an amusing brat. And then, Jihan's ability flares to life once more. A system window appears calculating his odds of survival. The result is absolutely terrifying. Probability of death: 95%. Looking at Doha, the hard truth dawns on him. He poured every drop of mana into that attack, and his opponent doesn't even have a scratch. Jihan finally understands. The top-ranked heroes are on an entirely different plane of existence. Doha casually dusts himself off and rises. Jihan knows this is a fight he absolutely cannot win. Not yet. The muscular man stomps the ground, calling out to his new rookie. He declares the score is 1-1, and asks who's ready for round 2. But instead of attacking Jihan, hurls the mana crystal directly at Doha. He tells him he won the fight and to take the prize. Doha catches it, his expression darkening at the disrespectful gesture. He asks if the rookie really thinks he can just walk away. Our protagonist fires back that the crystal is all Doha ever wanted. He declares he has zero intention of fighting him. And then he plays his trump card, citing Article 38, Section 9 of the Hero Law. It states that Doha is legally required to accept his surrender. Doha's face twists in annoyance, complaining that things were just getting interesting. Suddenly, a deafening roar cuts through the tension. Doha glances over his shoulder, remarking that someone has arrived right on cue. 2 helicopters descend from the sky, holding the crystal Doha size that the grunts from his guild have finally decided to show up. See her assets bouncing with excitement points out those choppers belong to the Hero Association. A woman leans out of the helicopter, yelling for Mr. Yoon and scolding him for wandering off on his own again. The man in the flip-flops just flashes the mana crystal, telling her he had a little business to take care of. He adds that her nagging is already getting on his nerves. Doha turns back to Jihan, warning him that next time no one will be around to save him. Your name, he demands. Our protagonist answers, Jihan Yu of the Epic Guild. Doha repeats the guild's name, dripping with sarcasm. Then Doha actually offers some advice. He tells them to surpass rank 4 and advance in the upcoming exam. Looking straight at our protagonist, he says he might even put in a recommendation. Jihan is stunned, asking him why. Doha just grins, because I feel like it. And just like that, the helicopters ascend and vanish. Aboard the chopper, Doha asks his assistant if she was listening. He tells her to put in a recommendation for the girl with the airbags and our protagonist. His assistant immediately pushes back. She reminds him the exam is in 2 days, and she can't just recommend random strangers. She adds that their guild hasn't even completed the proper registration process yet. Then she freezes. She spots a fresh wound on Doha's arm. Her mind reels. How in the world did he get injured? Doha just smiles. This is going to be fun. Cut back to the Epic headquarters. Sashimi is on his hands and knees begging for his life. The duo tells him to can the apology and get ready for a beatdown. Sashimi desperately pleads for just 1 minute to try and explain himself. The rank 4 exam, he scoffs. I overheard you. The deadline is in 2 days. Do you honestly believe you can pass with your current equipment? He gestures at their gear with disgust. This stuff is junk. You're practically begging to fail. But then Sashimi offers a dangerous deal. He knows a secret place to power up their gear. If Siha and Jihan aren't satisfied, he says they can beat him to a bloody pulp. Siha and Jihan exchange a look, weighing the desperate offer. They agree to trust him one last time. Lead the way. The scene shifts, landing them in front of a weapon shop. Sashimi pushes the door open as the other two hang back. He peeks inside nervously. There's nobody here. Siha's temper flares. Did you trick us again? Sashimi swears it's not a trap. Suddenly, a deep voice booms from right behind them. Who are you? The mysterious figure chuckles. The shop isn't open today, he rumbles. What do you want? The realization dawns on them. That powerful build, that commanding presence. He's definitely a dwarf blacksmith. The narrator explains that dwarves are a legendary race famous for their godlike forging skills. They craft mighty S-rank swords, making them invaluable to high-level heroes. Siha stares in awe at the short figure. She admits she's never seen a real dwarf in her entire life. Jihan feels the same way. She turns to thank Sashimi for the incredible connection. But the crafty cleaner had already pulled a vanishing act. He was gone in a flash. The blacksmith, however, looks deeply offended. I am not a dwarf, he barks. How ridiculous. He insists he's a normal human who has lived his whole life in Korea. The duo is utterly shocked. A Korean dwarf. Siha accuses him of lying. Anyone with eyes can see you're a dwarf. Jihan, ever skeptical, demands to see his identification. Are you two some kind of comedy act? The smith sighs, handing over his card. The card proves it. Legally, he wasn't a dwarf. As they stared at the ID, they realized he was telling the truth. Jihan squints at the photo. You're seriously only 27 years old. The picture looked nothing like him. They figured the ID had to be a fake. Siha, call the cops, Jihan orders. Her anger boils over, realizing Sashimi must have conned them again. But as she agrees, the blacksmith simply ignores the chaos. His eyes had locked onto something far more interesting. He points at Jihan's sword. Let me see that for a second. Why? Jihan asks cautiously. The smith takes the blade, inspecting it with an expert eye. It's been a long time, he muses, since I've seen a weapon with these particular scratches. He looks up, his gaze sharp. He declares, You're a wind elementalist. Jihan is stunned. How did you know? The smith smirks with the pride of a master. Any first-class blacksmith can identify a hero's class just by looking at their gear. Unfortunately, he adds, this current sword of yours is trash. It was never forged to handle the intensity of elemental power. The smith asks for a moment. I will craft the perfect weapon for an elementalist, he proclaims. He returns with a magnificent blade humming with power. He claims it can withstand any force. Jihan takes the weapon in awe. The smith reveals the sword's name is Hoyol Nam. Siha bluntly replies, that is a terrible name for a sword. And just like that, time skips forward. The day of the exam arrives in the blink of an eye. A door opens, and our hero and heroine arrive at the packed venue. The place is overflowing with challengers. Siha is overwhelmed by the sheer size of the crowd. Jihan thinks to himself that it's been a long time since he'd taken the rank 4 exam, especially after being disgracefully kicked out of the Kuros Guild. Suddenly, a harsh whisper cuts through the air behind him, loser. As Jihan walks by, the whispers turn into a flood of gossip. They mutter about his expulsion from Kuros. They can't believe he has the nerve to show his face here again. One hunter sneers, if I were him, I would have quit being a hero from the shame. Siha leans in, whispering, are they all trashing you? Just tune it out. Jihan tells her, his face unreadable. He thinks of Doha with a small sense of relief. At least no one here seems to know about the catastrophe in Bukin. He resolves to focus. He will do his best and pass no matter what. A thunderous voice suddenly shatters the atmosphere. Silence! You're all making way too much noise for a bunch of losers taking a pathetic rank 4 exam. It's time for a reality check, the man sneers. He scans the room with utter contempt. Every last one of you is mediocre. Nobody here is special. He marches directly up to Jihan, getting in his face. And you are not up to standard. This man is Hunik Bang, also known as the infamous Xiangbang. A dangerous light begins to glow in Jihan's eyes. Inside his head, he's screaming Doha's name. Xiangbang leans in. Don't you agree? A system window suddenly appears, calculating the abysmally low pass rate. In that moment, Jihan realizes everything. Doha set him up. He only gave him this recommendation to ensure that he would fail. We cut to Doha. He's calmly enjoying a cookie when his assistant enters the room. She confirms, I've sent the recommendations you requested, sir. He's impressed by her speed, but she seems confused. Sir, I found something strange. Why on earth would you choose Xiangbang to be the evaluator? Back at the exam hall, absolute chaos has broken out. Songbang stands in the middle of the arena, looking down on 3 defeated challengers. He lectures them with a cold voice. You rushed in without a strategy, without even knowing your opponent's weakness. With a savage grin, he roars, "Showtime!" and unleashes a shockwave that sends all 3 of them hurtling. He scoffs, calling them nothing more than amateurs. As the 3 hunters crash to the floor, Xiang Bang stands alone, completely untouched. A system window flashes. Group 12 is disqualified. Behind a one-way mirror, 3 powerful figures watch the carnage unfold. Damn it, one of them shouts. Isn't this a little too harsh? The woman worries that at this rate, no one is going to pass. Then there's Han Shou-Kim, a rank 4 evaluator with a twisted sense of humor. He smirks arrogantly. Rank 5 heroes are basically just civilians with pointy toys anyway. Another evaluator. Han Oh wonders what on earth they're going to tell the bosses. Finally, a hooded man tells them to focus on the last group. His name is Jihan Yu. Someone remarks they finally get to see the famed Epic Guild in action. The arrogant evaluator nods, knowing this is the kid Doha personally recommended. He points out that everyone else in the party is from the Dice Guild. As Seiha and our main character walk toward the exam room, a whisper cuts through the crowd. Those 2 are in for a brutal reality check. Gripping their weapons tightly, they finally step into the lion's den. The smug evaluator comments that our protagonist looks tough, but criticizes his lack of flexibility. He smirks, noting Xiang Bang is a squad leader for a reason. With a flash of light, the system interface materialized before them. It was a formal welcome to the Rank 4 exam, with the rules clearly displayed. They had 5 minutes to clear the trial. Victory meant either defending successfully or forcing the evaluator to surrender. Seiha begins to panic, asking how 2 rookies are supposed to land a single hit on a pro hunter. Xiang Bang's oppressive aura flares to life. Jihan analyzes his opponent, wondering how he wiped out all those groups without taking a single scratch. Jihan turns to Seiha, his voice calm. Cover me, just like in the MA zone. She gives a firm, trusting nod. Light envelopes Jihan as he activates his buffs. He warns her, "This fight is going to be way harder than the monsters." The system announces the start of the exam. Instantly, Seongbang lunges forward with a dirty, cheap shot, delivering a brutal kick straight to Jihan's chest. Our hero barely manages to throw up a block in time. Jihan grunts that attacking right at the bell is just unfair. In a flash, Seongbang vanishes and reappears before Seha. He aims a vicious punch, ready to give her some free dental surgery. But his fist collides with something hard. It's not her face. It's a shimmering barrier. Bang's eyes widen in confusion. How did she block that? He wonders. Then his eyes dart to the side, and he realizes it wasn't her. It was Jihan protecting her from a distance. He's down on one knee, but he made the crucial save. A predatory grin spreads across Seongbang's face. So Doha's recommendation wasn't a joke after all. Without a moment's hesitation, he stomps down hard on Jihan's chest again. He then breaks into his sprint, gripping his wooden sword and charging. Jihan scrambles to his feet as they clash in a blur of high-speed blows. Seongbang taunts him mid-fight. "The gap in our strength is massive. Even with a wooden stick, I can crush you both." A faint glow emanates from Jihan's eye. He knows he needs to create some distance, and he needs to do it now. He unleashes a wind bomb, blasting the evaluator backward. Seongbang executes a smooth backflip landing, perfectly on his feet. He clicks his tongue in annoyance. A wind magic type. How irritating. But Jihan is already moving. He triggers his stealth ability and uses haste to instantly rematerialize right behind Seongbang. The evaluator's instincts scream as he senses the ambush from behind. Back in the observation room, someone questions why Seongbang was ever picked as the evaluator. He notes it makes passing nearly impossible. The assistant agrees it's bad news for the Epic Guild. But Doha simply explains the choice. Because Seongbang, he says calmly, is the only swordsman alive capable of cutting through the wind itself. In the arena, Seongbang flashes a crazed smile. He unleashes his signature skill, Rapid Attack Art-Cutting Whirlwind. The attack sends Jihan flying, coughing up blood across the floor. While the evaluator stands tall, Jihan is pinned to the ground. He admits to himself that he's not moving at top speed. He's still recovering from his fights with the mutant in Doha. On top of that, his low-grade sword is draining far too much mana. Seongbang looks down on him with utter disappointment. Is this really the best you can do? Even with a recommendation from Master Yoon? He prepares to disqualify our hero. But suddenly, Seha leaps into the fray. She screams for Jihan to get back. Her spell erupts, blasting Seongbang away and creating some much-needed space. She plants herself firmly in front of Jihan, clutching her staff. "I'll handle the rest," she declares. "I can't keep hiding behind you forever." Seongbang scoffs at her defiance. "I have no time to play with weaklings." Seha snaps back, her voice filled with fire. "I am not weak." She pulls her hair back to reveal long, pointed ears, introducing herself as Seha Kim, an elf. Seongbang lets out a theatrical yawn. "I already knew that." He then roars. Does a mere mage truly think she can brawl with a swordsman? He unleashes a blinding flurry of strikes at her, but she simply closes her eyes. She declares softly, "Elves, follow the path of mana." She moves like a phantom, effortlessly evading a storm of attacks. Then it's her turn to strike, unleashing a torrent of slicing gales. Seongbang scoffs, calling her a fool. Did she truly believe such a basic spell could touch him? But then he feels a chill as a magic circle materializes behind him. He sneers at her pathetic sneak attack, but his smirk vanishes as two more circles flare into existence. He's stunned. How could a mere rank 5 mage launch multiple incantations? He does a double take. It's not just 3. She's weaving 7 spells simultaneously. A web of power erupts, locking him in place. He grunts, forced to admit she's trapped him completely. A cataclysmic explosion engulfs the arena, forcing Sia to shield her eyes from the blinding shockwave. She smirks, certain there was no escape. But as the smoke clears, a silhouette remains. Seongbang stands untouched. Brushing the dust from his shoulders, he admits her performance wasn't half bad. He even condescendingly calls her plan to corner him rather clever. Then, in a flash, Seongbang teleports directly behind her. He whispers into her ear, "You're just too slow." Seiya is utterly paralyzed. He tanked all 7 spells and didn't even flinch. But Seongbang's attention is elsewhere. He was merely waiting for the main character to finally make his move. He tightens his grip on his sword, his eyes fixed on Jihan. He taunts him, claiming his overconfidence would be his downfall. But in that instant, a revelation strikes Jihan like lightning. He'd been wrong about everything. It wasn't the sword that was devouring his energy. He himself was bleeding mana like a rank amateur. Jihan knew he had to change his entire strategy. He focuses his will, gathering a sliver of energy and compressing it, forcing it into a single infinitesimally small point of immense power. Finally, he unleashes his ultimate technique, One Sword. The world goes white and the scene cuts to a lavish office lined with gleaming trophies. A sharp knock echoes on the door. A young man gazing out the window grants permission to enter without turning. A blonde man with piercing blue eyes steps in here to report on Guts, the squad leader. The boss only hums, then asks how Gang Yu is fitting in with the team. The blonde seeks clarification. You mean Gang Yu Kim? The boss confirms wanting to know about the hunter who replaced Jihan after his expulsion. We finally see the man by the window, Junga Park, the formidable master of the Kuros Guild. The blonde aide admits there have been some minor issues with team stability, but he assures the master they are adapting. Junga declares with chilling confidence that Gang Yu will soon surpass the protagonist. The aide, however, pales nervously, adding that he has other news. He takes a deep breath and drops the bombshell. Jihan successfully passed the Rank 4 advancement exam. The guildmaster freezes. He demands to know how that piece of trash pulled it off, recalling how Jihan barely scraped by in the past. The blonde explains that unbelievably Doha personally vouched for him. Junga's eyes widen, ordering him to repeat what he just said. The scene snaps back to the arena. Jihan stands victorious, looking down at the defeated Xiangbang, while the evaluator lies battered on the ground. Xiangbang groans, asking how a worthless rookie like him managed to catch the eye of the great Mr. Yoon. He sighs, then finally concedes his defeat. He admits Jihan has won this round, cursing that Doha conveniently forgot to mention the kid was a powerful elementalist. Later, the two are catching their breath. The waifu beams, asking him how he managed to master his elemental abilities so quickly. Jihan just shrugs, feigning ignorance. But inwardly he knows. That life-or-death battle had forcibly awakened his true potential, refining his control. He wonders if this was Doha's grand design all along. Turning to Seiya, he praises her, saying she did an amazing job distracting the evaluator. She blushes humbly, replying that it was nothing. Jihan grins, ready to share the good news. They have officially cleared the combat evaluation, but Jihan quickly adds that they shouldn't celebrate just yet. The interview portion still awaits them. They take a seat watching as team after team exits the room with crushed expressions. At last, a voice calls for the Epic Guild, announcing that they're up next. One of the evaluators on the panel remarks that this squad seems remarkably composed. Another man agrees, noting their battle was filled with several intriguing developments. Seiya and Jihan step into the lion's den. A polite-looking man begins to speak, suggesting they get started if there are no objections. But he's immediately cut off by a furious shout to fail them on the spot. A dissenter begins tearing into their tank. He labels Jihan an arrogant fool, questioning if he could protect anyone when true danger strikes. This man is dangly a nobody from the Warriors Guild. He declares that allowing this squad to pass is an absolute absurdity. Another voice chimes in, demanding their immediate disqualification. Someone else grumbles that at this rate no one will pass the exam today. Jihan silently wonders why their voices are so needlessly loud. He quickly deduces their plan. They're trying to intimidate them, hoping to leave a powerful negative first impression on the panel. The polite man ignores the uproar calmly, thanking them for their time and telling them to relax. Seiya formally introduces them as members of the Epic Guild. Realizing his mistake, the polite man frantically shuffles through his documents, a look of surprise on his face. He remarks that according to the reports, they were the only candidates to actually achieve victory in their combat trial. He calls it an impressive feat. Jihan replies with a smirk that it was nothing more than a stroke of good luck. CA plays along, thanking the man. The dark-haired examiner then interjects, stating that since they defeated an official evaluator, there's nothing left to discuss. But suddenly, a scraggly-looking man on the panel leans forward, fixing Sia with an intense gaze and asking a very strange question. He scoffs, wondering if she can even see through that curtain of hair, and tells her to tuck it back. Sia agrees and sweeps her hair aside. In that moment, the entire room goes silent. The judges gasp, urging everyone to witness what was hidden. The lead interviewer's demeanor shifts instantly, the air growing cold. "An elf," he declares, licking his lips with a predatory gleam. "My mistake," he sneers. "I thought you were a pureblood." But the dark-haired judge fires back. "Your attitude is completely out of line." The man just waves it off as a bad habit. Then his gaze locks onto Jihan. "And you? Could you stop glaring at me like you want to kill me?" Sia gently tells Jihan to let it go. It's not worth it. Jihan grits his teeth, knowing this creep isn't the real problem here. "Well," the interviewer smirks, "shall we proceed with the interview?" But before answering, Jihan realizes with a flash of insight, this was all a calculated provocation. The interviewer shifts his line of questioning. "Is it true your father researches monsters at an institution in Kyoto?" Sia confirms this. She then drops a bombshell, stating that their guild epic had already slain the mutant cockatrice. It was all thanks to her father's data. The panel is left speechless, absolutely stunned. A new guild with only 2 members had accomplished such a legendary feat. Meanwhile, the lead interviewer's eyes fixated on Sia. He scoffs. "In a decade as a hero, I've never seen a half-elf running a guild." His eyes narrow into venomous slits. "I have just one question for you," he says, setting his verbal trap. "If a horde of elves invaded Korea, whose side would you choose?" The hostile question hangs in the air, and Sia freezes, completely paralyzed by shock. The other interviewers are bewildered. But before they can react, Jihan finally explodes. He stands up abruptly, his voice ringing with fury. "Is mocking people now a standard procedure for the Warriors Guild?" He calls the man out on his twisted game. "You never intended to test our skills," he roars. "This was all just to humiliate our guildmaster?" The other two judges can only watch the disaster unfold. But the interviewer leans back, an arrogant smirk on his face. "As the one in charge, I can ask any question I want." The dark-haired man tries to intervene, but Jihan's fury has reached its peak. "If you insult my guild one more time, we don't need to pass this test." They were prepared to walk out right then and there. The panel desperately begs them to calm down, but the damage is done. Sia leaves the room, her spirit crushed, utterly convinced they were doomed. The scene shifts to outside the headquarters. Sia sips a juice, the shadow of their certain failure hanging over her. Jihan approaches, his voice thick with guilt. He apologizes for his outburst, blaming himself for ruining their one chance. But Sia offers a small, reassuring smile. "It's okay," she says softly. "Thank you for standing up for me." She admits that no one in her entire life has ever defended her with such passion. Jihan then notices her nervously refreshing a webpage on her phone. "Are you okay?" he asks. "Why are you torturing yourself like this?" She whispers that she's just curious. Jihan apologizes once more. Suddenly, Sia's eyes widen. The results, they're live. Her finger traces the list of squads advancing to rank 4. They both freeze. Their guild's name is on the screen. They look at each other, unable to process what they are seeing. Back in the interview room, the other judges demand an explanation. "Are you absolutely certain about this decision?" "I am," he replies coolly, feigning an apology. He claims he merely crossed a line while testing their resolve, blaming his own curiosity. He casually tosses an apple in the air and catches it. "Epic," he muses aloud. He wonders how far the two of them can truly go. But in the darkness of his mind, he smirks, thinking of them as nothing more than arrogant brats. His thoughts twist into a sinister plot. He wants to watch them climb higher and higher, but not out of support. The man vows to himself that he will be the one to shatter their dreams later. Meanwhile, our two heroes are still staring at the screen, completely baffled. How on earth did they actually make it? The scene changes, moving to the Rank 2 area in Pew City. A high-speed bus arrives to a thunderous welcome. A massive crowd of fans and journalists is waiting as the doors hiss open and a figure steps out. A reporter screams into her microphone. "Hundi, the leader of the Kuros Guild, has arrived." Cameras flash as they beg Mr. Kim to look their way. Someone in the horde of fans screams out their adoration for Guts. Security guards strain to hold back the mob. But Guts simply offers a flawless, practiced smile and says, such behavior isn't necessary. He thanks the crowd for their passionate support, but asks them to stay behind the safety line. As Guts' squad walks toward the zone, the fans call him a knight, wishing his team good luck on their mission. But the very moment he steps past the barrier, the charming mask crumbles away. "Ugh, those worms," he complains, his voice dripping with venom. "All that noise was making my ears bleed." His muscular teammate observes the crowd was even larger than last time. Guts growls in annoyance. "How do they find our location every single time?" Just then, a voice speaks up from right behind him. He sneered, asking if Guts saw the girl near the entrance. The sight of her, he claimed, was enough to make him sick. This arrogant hunter was Gang Yu Kim. Sidestepping the topic, Gang Yu probed, asking what Guts' type was when it came to women. Guts gave a blunt reply. He liked pretty ones. A grin spread across Gang Yu's face as he promised to call some beautiful girls later, inviting Guts to a club that night. But Shanlam cut him off. Pointing out Mia Lee's presence, she told him to watch his disgusting mouth. Gang Yu seamlessly shifted his focus. Without missing a beat, he suggested Shanlam join them at the club as well. She scoffed at the very idea. Did he honestly think she'd ever set foot in a place like that? But Gang Yu knew her weakness. He dangled the perfect bait, saying several famous models were dying to meet her. Instantly, she was hooked. Her eyes lit up as she promised to bring her own handsome friends along. Gang Yu smirked to himself. Manipulating these simpletons was child's play. With just a little nudge, they were all puppets dancing on his strings. But his gaze fell on Mia Lee, and his confidence faltered. She was different, an unreadable fortress. Noticing his stare, Mia Lee's voice cut through his thoughts, asking what was wrong. He quickly looked away, muttering that it was nothing. But inside, he made a decision he would have to watch her. Very carefully. Suddenly, the sound of footsteps shattered the quiet. Guts spun around to see 3 strangers approaching them. The man in the lead greeted Hyundi Kim. He remarked that it had been a long time since he'd seen Guts inside an MA zone. Guts confirmed it had been a few months. The scarred man then asked about his other squad member. Guts feigned ignorance, asking, "Who?" "The one who always carried your bag," the man clarified. Guts, ever the liar, claimed the kid had quit and this was his new replacement. Gang Yu stepped up, introducing himself as squad support. The scarred man eyed him doubtfully, saying Jihan leaving was a real shame. Kim wanted to know the reason. Scarface explained that about a year ago, Jihan had single-handedly saved their entire team. He said Jihan's movements were on a completely different level. He couldn't fathom how a mere baggage carrier possessed such skill. Scarface made an offer if Jihan ever needed a guild, his doors were wide open. With a final nod, the two groups parted ways. A dark fury simmered within Guts. Someone, Music, wondered aloud if Jihan was truly that incredible. Gang Yu scoffed, saying he'd only heard that Jihan was useless dead weight. He insisted Scarface was just giving the kid way too much credit. But as Gang Yu rambled on, Guts' voice cut through the air low and dangerous. My sword? A reptilian beast erupted from the ground. As chaos unfolded, Guts roared for his sword again. His blade ignited in flames as he launched himself at the monster Jihan's name echoing in his mind. The scene shifts. A woman gasped in disbelief while others cried out, realizing they had left everything behind. A traffic guard bellowed that the area was now a restricted rank 4 zone. He ordered an immediate and total evacuation. One man worried about his property values plummeting. Another feared he wouldn't even have a home left to return to. Just then, Jihan and Kim arrived. Is this the place? He asked. Kim confirmed it might be as Jihan recognized the rank 4 zone of the saber-toothed tigers. As if on cue, one of the massive felines leaped from above, lunging straight for them. Jihan charged towards the beast, shouting for Seiyu magic began to form around her. As Jihan drew his blade, his speed a blur, the music. Tiger was met with a flash of steel. The powerful creature was cleaved clean in two. Kim was stunned, admitting she thought a rank 4 zone's monsters would be tougher. Jihan explained the mutant they'd faced before was an exceptionally rare case. Kim then wondered how they'd get the tiger's corpse down from the roof. Jihan casually suggested they just call a cleaning service. Suddenly, a desperate scream for help echoed nearby. Seiyu realized a civilian was still trapped inside and urged them to hurry. But Jihan froze. That voice, it was strangely familiar. He appeared in a flash beside the trapped man, announcing they were heroes from the Epic Guild here to help. It was Sashimi pathetically pleading for salvation from a tiny kitten. Kim recognized him immediately. The cleanup guy, she exclaimed. The kittens were dispatched in seconds. Chihu marveled at how lucky they were to run into him here. She called it nothing short of music destiny. But as she asked for his agreement, Sashimi sheepishly explained, he just went to use the restroom, completely unaware they were sealing the entire area. Jihan sighed, saying he'd let it slide since Sashimi had provided such great equipment before. Seiyu smiled, remarking on Jihan's kind heart. With the situation resolved, Jihan made an offer. He asked Sashimi why he didn't just officially join their guild as their dedicated cleanup guy. Sashimi nervously asked why it had to be him. Jihan's reason was simple. Despite everything that had happened, he still trusted him. A new fire lit in Sashimi's eyes. He promised they could leave all the monster bodies to him, then sprinted off toward the building, chanting his new purpose. Seiyu watched him go, a hint of suspicion in her voice. You don't think he's going to trick us again, do you? Don't worry, Jihan promised. His skills are too valuable to lose. With their business concluded, he suggested they move out. But just as they turned to leave, a voice ripped through the air. Stop this slaughter of innocent creatures. They're living beings just like us, the protester screamed. They deserve our respect. Their cries grew louder, a desperate plea to respect all life. Seo turned to Jihan. Are these an activist group? Jihan confirmed they were from the IUPC, an organization dedicated to the coexistence of humans and monsters. He mentioned that protests like these were becoming more and more common around the monster area zones. When Seo asked if he agreed with their ideology, his response was sharp. Absolutely not. He called the whole idea ridiculous. Would they still chant their slogans after watching their beloved monsters tear heroes limb from limb? A security guard tried to hold the line, pleading with them not to enter. But a bystander just screamed at the heroes to save their friends. They've broken through the barrier, a guard yelled in panic. The crowd roared, the heroes are here. Don't let them escape. In the blink of an eye, Seo and Jihan were completely swallowed by the angry mob. Jihan couldn't fathom what these people were thinking. A frantic protester Sharon pointed a shaking finger. Look at these poor creatures. How can you be so heartless? She shrieked. Another apologized to a monster's corpse. These murderers have no right to call themselves heroes. The sheer misguided fury of the civilians was baffling. Jihan hoped the Hero Association would get this mess under control. Just then, a new voice cut through the chaos like a blade. All of you, get out of my way. He nonchalantly asked if they were done. Jihan whirled around, his eyes blazing. And just who the hell are you? A lazy smirk spreads across the man's face. Me, I'm the one you despise the most. With a flick of his wrist, a colossal wall of earth erupted from the ground. He grinned down at Jihan. So what's your next move? After raising the wall, Doha stood there, a silent, overwhelming presence. Some called him the Earth Dragon. To others, he was nothing more than a clown. In the West, they knew him as the Earthquake Man. Releasing a tiny fraction of his power, he declared, "But I prefer Bad Boy." A collective gasp rippled through the crowd. It's the Bad Boy Doha Yun, another whispered. The #1 ranked hero. What is he doing here? Jihan muttered under his breath. Of course it's this guy. He just loves appearing out of thin air. Didn't this show-off have anything better to do? Doha's voice then thundered, Leave now, or I'll send every last one of you to hell. He shouted a single name and a deafening explosion ripped through the ground beneath them. From the dust and debris, a dragon of pure earth materialized at his side. Jihan was stunned. What is that? Is that an actual elemental? The creature was Mumu, a Terra elemental. Doha gave a single chilling order. Restrain them. Instantly, whips of solid earth shot towards the crowd. Not a single protester was spared. One by one, they were ensnared and lifted helplessly into the air. Jihan urged Seo to escape, but she reminded him, a certified hero can't just flee the scene of an incident. Seo grumbled that their hands were tied. Jihan could only marvel at Doha's insane power, capturing so many people without a single injury. Doha strolled towards them, casually apologizing for the delay. I heard you two finally passed the rank 4 exam, he said with a grin. The comment sent a jolt through Jihan, the memory of that brutal battle still fresh in his mind. Snapping out of it, Jihan offered a sarcastic thanks to their merciful evaluator. Doha just laughed. Bang seems intense, but he's a good person deep down. Intense, Jihan shot back. That madman nearly killed us. I knew that if you survived, you'd emerge stronger, Doha explained coolly. This led him to wonder which of the two was now more powerful. Jihan's eyes narrowed into slits. Did you really come all this way just to pick a fight? Before he could answer, another group arrived, calling out Doha's name. Onlookers began to whisper, wondering why he was in a rank 4 area. Seo pointed out the newcomers were from other guilds. Doha sighed in annoyance. We're drawing too much attention. Let's move this. The scene cuts to a massive construction site buzzing with the sounds of heavy machinery and workers. One of the workers waved at Doha, asking why he wasn't on the job. Just handling a little something, Doha replied smoothly. Jihan realized he was standing at the Dice Guild's base of operations, a place bustling with incredible energy. Expanding the training grounds, Doha explained offhandedly. Sorry for the racket. As they approached the main building, Jihan told him it was fine. The moment the three of them stepped inside, an impossible silence fell. It felt more like a quiet coffee shop than a guild headquarters. He realized the deafening noise from the construction had completely vanished. Seo, however, looked absolutely amazed. To shield an entire building this perfectly, she breathed. The amount of mana required is astronomical. This is the power of a major guild. When Jihan asked if it was really that powerful, she confirmed it with a look of awe. A barrier like this must cost 20 billion won to maintain. Jihan couldn't fathom it. Can a guild even earn that kind of fortune? A voice cut through the air. I'm glad you appreciate my work. A woman appeared, her gaze fixed on Seo. Your estimate was spot on. Are you interested in mana barriers? She smiled with an air of confidence. My name is Jaeyoung Park, vice leader of the Dice Guild. Jihan's eyes widened in disbelief. The actual vice leader. Seo admitted she'd mistaken the powerful woman for a mere assistant. Doha casually addressed her. Jaeyoung, you remember these two, right? Book us a meeting room. Jaeyoung Park agreed, but her demeanor instantly shifted. And just where have you been? You've missed every single one of your appointments. She pinched his cheek hard. What do you think you're doing? Doha yelped to your guildmaster. Want respect? Then stop acting like a child, she retorted. Jihan sighed. They're louder than the entire construction site. Once their chaotic squabble finally died down, Jihan and Seo followed Doha into the meeting room. Doha's playful attitude vanished. He got straight to the point. Any idea why I brought you here? Jihan had a feeling he knew. It's about my elemental, isn't it? Bingo, Doha confirmed with a smirk. Just then, a brilliant light filled the room. A tiny fox-like creature materialized and let out a soft meow. Meet my partner, Doha said proudly. This is Mumu. He then posed a question. Recognize him from the protest incident. Jihan's jaw dropped. This tiny creature, he stammered, is the same one that became a massive dragon. Mumu huffed its voice surprisingly clear. I was busy with construction, Doha soothed. This will be quick, I promise. The elemental's gaze fell upon them. And why are there guests? It demanded. Jihan managed a nervous hello. Seo, however, was completely captivated. Her eyes sparkled at the adorable creature, while Jihan was just baffled by the whole situation. Doha's focus returned to Jihan. Now, summon your elemental. Jihan complied. At his command, a glowing green orb pulsed into existence. The moment it appeared, it drifted towards the little fox. I can tell it's a wind elemental, Doha observed. What's its name? Her name is Silf, Jihan introduced. Doha's expression grew serious. Silf is the entire reason for this meeting. He leaned forward, his voice low. In my 17 years as an elementalist, Mumu was the only one known to exist in all of Korea. I reviewed your file, Jihan, Doha continued. There's nothing in there about you being an elementalist. Which means, he deduced, you must have awakened this power the moment you joined the Epic Guild. But that timeline makes absolutely no sense. Doha's voice sharpened. Explain it to me. How did you contract a wind elemental? As Jihan prepared to answer, Seo stepped forward. Please allow me to explain. Silf belonged to someone else before, she revealed. when Doha demanded to know who Sio's voice was heavy. My mother Nahaun, she was Silf's last contractor. The tension in the room lessened. Doha appeared to accept her story. I never imagined, Doha muttered, truly speechless, to think he contracted with Hyun's elemental. He thought to himself, but elementals are supposed to vanish when their master dies. Apparently I was wrong about that. Resting his chin on his hand, his mind raced. Even if I have doubts, it doesn't matter anymore. A smirk returned to Doha's face. Now then, shall we discuss the real reason I called you here? Sio looked confused. I thought it was about Silf. That was part of it, yes, Doha confirmed. But there are two very important matters to discuss. What do you mean? Jihan pressed. Doha didn't waste any time. I'll be direct. The Dice Guild wants to buy Epic. Sio was stunned. Why? Doha laid his cards on the table. 20 billion won in exchange for total control of your guild. Rage flashed in Sio's eyes. She shot to her feet, slamming her hands on the table. Are you being serious right now? Doha remained perfectly calm. Completely. I can even raise the price. He spelled out their choices. Remain a tiny 2-person guild forever, or let me help you expand. And as part of this deal, he added, locking eyes with Jihan, I will personally teach you how to master that elemental. Furthermore, he promised, I won't interfere with your squad's independence at all. Doha turned his full attention to Jihan. Think about it. This is the ideal situation for you. Overwhelmed, Sio admitted, the offer is more than generous, but I'm just caught off guard. Take your time, Doha suggested with a confident smile. Consider it carefully. But before he could finish, Jihan's voice cut through the air. I refuse. Doha's smile vanished, replaced by shock. Jihan's gaze was like steel. Epic is not for sale. Not now, not ever. The conviction in his voice left Sio speechless. Suddenly, a bag was tossed unceremoniously to the floor. Sashimi appeared where the activists were being held, looking around. What in the world happened here? My part of the job is done, he announced to no one. But where's Jihan? He was practically buzzing with excitement, eager to share his accomplishments. The scene snaps back to the tense negotiation. Jihan faced Doha without flinching. You can double your offer as many times as you like. It won't be enough. His voice rang with absolute certainty. Just like Dice Epic will become one of the greatest guilds. Hearing that declaration, Doha's friendly mask finally cracked. His expression turned dangerously sour. Sihu's silence finally shatters. With tears in her eyes, she grabs Jihoon, demanding to know who gave him the right to decide. But her cries are drowned out by Doha's manic echoing laughter. Once he calms down, Doha scoffs that such ambition is far too grand for a mere 2-person guild. He admits he never expected such arrogance from Jihoon. Unfazed, Jihoon turns to leave his final words hanging in the air. I have faith in my guild. Faith in my... Doha pushes up his glasses with a smirk. Faith? He mocks. He notes that Jihoon speaks as if the deal were already sealed, finding him utterly entertaining. And just like that, Doha's offer is withdrawn. Sihu desperately tries to remind him that she is the guild leader, but her voice is completely ignored. Doha calls for his assistant, saying he's returning something that belongs to them. He asks if they remember a certain stone, revealing the brilliant monocrystal they'd recovered from the mutant. Jihoon's eyes narrow. Why would Doha return the crystal now? Doha explains the association's research on it is finished. He had planned to return it after the merger, but instead he'll offer it now, as a gift between 2 powerful elementalists. Jihoon gives a short thanks, about to declare that this is enough, when he's suddenly interrupted. In a flash, Silf darts away from the small dog, flying directly at the mana crystal and colliding with it. A brilliant light engulfs the room. From behind Jihoon, Doha's voice cuts through the glare, explaining that mana crystals are used to evolve elementals. He advises Jihoon to collect more of them, if he truly desires to become stronger. Doha adds that the more crystals he gathers, the closer Silf will be to materializing. Jihoon's voice trembles with shock. You mean, Silf can get a physical body? The scene shifts to the Korean branch of the IUPC. A telemarketer politely thanks a customer for calling, but her professional tone quickly breaks into one of pure shock. She asks the caller to repeat themselves. Their pet cat turned into a monster, she quickly promises to dispatch a team to capture the creature. In the background, office life continues as a man asks how long a promotional poster will take. Another voice replies, it should be about 3 hours. 2 women chat nearby, one asking about their next volunteer event. Her friend figures it's probably on the 21st. The woman in blue complains that an old lady hugged her last time, making her uncomfortable. The woman in gray just smiles, saying it can be nice sometimes. As they talk in front of a news broadcast, the first woman wishes more people would see the good they do. She feels certain that if they just have enough time, things will change in a massive way. She finishes by saying that every person who acknowledges their hard work gives her life new meaning. Suddenly, a deep roar startles them both. The sound of heavy claws and menacing growls fill the air. The woman in blue sighs. Oh, darling, the saber-toothed tiger is awake. They both know. It's feeding time. The woman in gray notes she remembered just in time. The first woman asks if she should get some food, but her friend says one serving is enough, and nothing too heavy. The woman in blue walks over to a large cabinet to see what's inside. She swings open the door, revealing not supplies, but a cage, with a terrified tied-up person inside. The woman greets them with a chilling smile. She can't believe the old lady is still alive, commenting on her resilience, while her partner mutters about how annoying it is. She opens a door and throws the elderly woman directly into the tiger's cage. As the woman sobs, she hears them tell the tiger to enjoy its meal. The massive tiger approaches, and in one horrific moment, devours her completely, leaving nothing behind. The woman in blue comments on how cute the tiger is, telling it to eat well. She then wonders aloud if one is really enough, but her friend insists, no, that will do. Suddenly, they hear a sound from behind them. A car pulls up outside, and the woman in blue says, "It looks like the managers are here." A stylish man steps out of the car, calmly sets the alarm, and greets everyone inside. His name is Mi-seong Lim, the manager of this IUPC branch. The others greet him warmly, asking about his trip. He replies with a sly smile that they wouldn't believe the beautiful creatures he managed to capture. One of them cheers that he's the best. Mi-seong Lim then asks for their attention, announcing he has good news. He opens a briefcase, announcing that their project is finally complete. He pulls out a pistol filled with a suspicious liquid, declaring the prototype a resounding success. Someone asks in a hushed voice if it's what they're all thinking. Mi-seong Lim brings up the cockatrice that escaped in Buchin. He explains their first attempt to create a mutant with a mana crystal failed, because the host body simply wasn't strong enough. On top of that, the resulting monster was nearly impossible to control. Mi-seong Lim continues, his eyes gleaming. This time will be different. He turns his gaze to the tiger, fires the pistol, and declares he will make it into something truly precious. A massive explosion of energy erupts from the tiger's cage. The creature he just shot now radiates an intense, overwhelming power. A satisfied smile spreads across Mi-seong Lim's face. One person begins clapping, and soon the applause spreads through the entire group. Gazing upon his new creation, he marveled, never imagining he would witness such perfect beauty. The scene cuts away to Incheon, a rank 4 territory. Citizens walked about in peace, but that tranquility was shattered by the arrival of Sihu and Jihan. Sihu immediately noticed the barrier far stronger than the last one. Jihan explained that dealing with the tigers would have taken far too long, especially after the chaos of the IUP incident. As Jihan mused about their good fortune in finding another crystal, a shadow loomed up right behind him. Looking like he'd just wrestled a demon, Sashimi demanded to know where Jihan vanished to yesterday. Sihu yelped a warning, but Jihan just casually greeted the newcomer. Sashimi's voice cracked with betrayal. Jihan had forced him to haul all those tigers alone before completely disappearing. Jihan offered a simple apology, but Sashimi was having none of it. "Is that all you have to say?" Suddenly, his entire body began to tremble violently. Then, just as suddenly, he erupted into maniacal laughter. Sihu stared in disbelief, asking what was wrong with him, calling him a lunatic. Holding his phone like a sacred relic, Sashimi warned them not to freak out when he showed them the screen. The moment they saw it, they both screamed like wild animals. A thrilled Sashimi announced the incredible news. The tigers and the cockatrice had sold out in an instant. Sihu, her eyes wide at the dizzying string of zeros, gasped that it was 500 million. Sashimi, towering behind them, called it the grand prize. Sihu collapsed to her knees, admitting hiring him was the best decision she'd ever made. Full of swagger, Sashimi declared that anything he handles is guaranteed to become pure gold. After the wild celebration, Sashimi brought up their contract, demanding a 10% fee. Jihan instantly shut him down, offering 4% much to Sashimi's outrage. Still arguing, Sashimi insisted that even in the world of monster cleanup, there's a code of honor to follow. Jihan just kept chanting, 4%. They battled back and forth, Sashimi dropping to 8%, only for Jihan to fire back with 4. Sashimi accused him of daylight robbery, but Jihan simply declared, "All right, 4% it is." A completely baffled Sashimi asked why he was arguing with himself. Just then, a voice of reason cut through the chaos, asking what the two fools were doing. Someone in the background muttered, "Oh, it's her again." The man turned, wondering who they were talking about. First, a tiny paw entered the frame. Then, a very peculiar-looking rat appeared. Sihu's face fell in disappointment. It was just a chinchilla. Whispers erupted from the crowd, wondering if that was one of the famed Tamares. Another person added they'd never seen her in this area before, identifying her as the renowned Yuri Min from the Snowflake Guild. The crowd buzzed with rumors that she was famous for exclusively hunting saber-toothed tigers. When someone asked why, the only answer was nobody knows. Meanwhile, Yuri walked straight past the 3 clowns from the Epic Guild without a second glance. Siho, however, was clearly captivated, a new crush blooming in his heart. Jihan snapped them out of it, telling them to focus on the mission. He explained that this tamer specialized in saber-toothed tigers. If they didn't get a move on, her chinchilla would steal every last one. As if summoned by his words, the chinchilla suddenly materialized right behind Jihan. He finally noticed it. "What the hell is this thing doing behind me?" The creature then opened its mouth wide, bearing a fearsome set of teeth. Sihu and Sashimi screamed for him to get away, but Jihan remained perfectly calm, telling them not to worry. It wouldn't attack. In that instant, a system window materialized, calculating the probability of the chinchilla launching an assault. Sashimi and Sihu stared in utter disgust at the scene unfolding. The chinchilla's owner noted how bizarre its behavior was, saying it almost never shows interest in anyone. The woman then formally introduced herself. "It was a pleasure to meet them," she said, revealing her name was Yuri Min of the Snowflake Guild. It was now Jihan's turn to respond. He introduced himself as Jihan Yu from the Epic Guild and gestured to the woman beside him as Epic's leader Tsu Kim. Yuri then asked if Jihan kept a hamster or other rodents at home. Jihan flatly denied owning any pets. Yuri found her chinchilla's reaction incredibly strange, certain there must be a hidden reason. At that moment, Sashimi called out to her. He boldly grabbed Yuri's hand, launching into his own flashy introduction as Sashimi from Monster Cleanup Services. Sashimi told her to call him anytime for cleanup services, but she politely declined. He insisted, telling her not to hesitate. Suddenly, the chinchilla appeared behind him, its expression one of pure fury. A small crowd of onlookers had gathered to watch the drama. Poor Sashimi was being completely ignored. The bystanders whispered amongst themselves, noting they'd never seen Yuri interact with another guild, before commenting on her typically cold demeanor. The topic then shifted as they wondered if these were the same people seen with Doha earlier. Jihan turned away, realizing they were attracting too much attention. Realizing she'd caused a scene, Yuri quickly apologized for the disturbance. As she departed, she wished the three of them good luck on their hunt, and Jihan returned the sentiment. But in his mind, he was already analyzing Yuri and her guild. He knew it had been almost 3 years since any news of Snowflake had surfaced. A guild with their reputation should have been rank 3 by now. He couldn't help but wonder why she was still a rank 4, but quickly dismissed it. Pondering her potential wasn't his mission right now. "Sishi, let's head inside," Jihan called out, and she nodded in agreement. Turning to the cleanup crew, he warned them not to wander off, getting a firm understood. The scene shifts to a monolithic tower named Greenscape as the pair steps through its entrance. Sishi immediately spoke up. Something's not right. They had already climbed to the 5th floor, yet hadn't seen a single monster. Jihan considered this. Maybe we're late to the party. Other guilds could have cleared the way. Pausing at the next staircase, Jihan decided they'd have to sweep each level on their way up. Sishi gestured to the side, asking why they weren't just taking the elevator. Jihan simply guessed it was out of order. So their long climb began. Sishi grumbled about him forcing a mage to take the stairs. Jihan shot back that every mage needs to build their stamina. But as they continued their ascent, a voice boomed from above demanding to know who dared to trespass. "State your names," the man commanded. He introduced himself as Gim, a high-ranking member of the formidable Knife Guild. Gim sneered, asking if they were blind to the sign on the 1st floor. Floors 207 to 209 were now Knife Guild territory. Sishi's voice dripped with fury. "You can't just claim a dungeon." But Gim just laughed, stating he didn't have time for insignificant guilds. He explained that it was an unspoken rule of the strong. They claimed the best hunting grounds to monopolize the monastones. When a major guild stakes a claim, he continued, lower-ranked hunters have no choice but to back off. His eyes narrowed on them. That especially applies to a 2-person party like yours. Get lost, now. But Jihan didn't budge. "No," he said calmly. "You're the ones who will be leaving." He declared his intent to report them as claiming territory is strictly illegal. "Shut your mouth," Gim roared. "Do you really think the Hunters Association will lift a finger for you? Is that a threat?" Jihan asked, his eyes darting around, sizing up the enemy. He quickly identified a tank, 2 warriors, and a mage. He noted the narrow staircase a perfect choke point. It would be impossible for all 4 of them to attack him at once. Activating his unique ability, he calculated his odds of victory. Another guild member just scoffed. "And what are you going to do about it?" As the tension mounted, a system window flashed only in his vision. The success rate was a staggering 80%. Gim's face twisted in confusion, wondering why nobody wasn't even flinching. Gim snapped at his mage. "What are you doing just standing there? Attack them." The mage stammered that he was just about to cast a spell. But it was too late. In that instant, Jihan yelled, "Sishi now!" "I'm ready," she answered, her spell already complete. In perfect sync, they unleashed their attacks, a torrent of water and a storm of fire. The elements collided, erupting in a devastating steam explosion. The blast was so powerful, it blew a massive hole straight through the building's outer wall. Without a moment's hesitation, Jihan and Sishi bolted, sprinting up the stairs with everything they had. "They're getting away!" one of the men shouted. But Sishi was 1 step ahead, casting another spell. A searing ring of fire erupted around the guild members, trapping them in a blazing inferno. Meanwhile, Jihan closed the distance in a flash, leaping towards Gim with deadly intent. Gim barely managed to block the incoming strike. "What is a weakling like you doing in a rank 4 dungeon?" he spat. Jihan smirked. "You talk too much." He then pointed out Gim's fatal error. His entire body was wide open. A devastating blow sent the guild leader tumbling back down to the floor he came from. Sprawled on the ground, he seethed. Do you have any idea what you've done? He threatened them with the full wrath of his guild, but Jihan cut him off, slamming his sword into the concrete inches from Gim's face. And what good is a guild to a dead man? Jihan asked coldly. Suddenly, another figure appeared, telling Gim his team was no match for them. Sishi's voice was chilling. Shall I end this right now? One of the trapped men watched in horror. How can she cast so many spells? Just who in the world are these two? Two more hunters appeared, with one shouting to put out the fire. But his partner frantically replied he wasn't skilled with water magic. A bald man grumbled that they were wasting precious energy on this garbage before they'd even seen the main target. As he spoke, he cautiously glanced over his shoulder. At that moment, a woman arrived, unleashing a powerful water spell that finally doused the magical flames. "The fire's out," she yelled. But as she turned around, a horrifying mutant tiger was already devouring the bald hunter, whose muffled screams echoed from inside the beast's bloody maw. Witnessing the carnage, the woman screamed and fled for her life. The chilling sounds reached Jihan and Sishi, echoing from the emergency stairwell. Sishi wondered aloud if it was a saber-toothed tiger, but Jihan knew instantly. No, the screams are too loud for that. This is something else entirely. He immediately activated his skill. A system window materialized before his eyes, calculating his probability of survival. And in that very instant, the beast appeared before them, its fur matted with the fresh blood of its last meal. The creature let out a soul-shaking roar. The monstrous saber-toothed tiger fixed its gaze directly on Jihan and Sishi. The system window updated with a terrifying number, survival chance 0.5%. Without warning, the mutant charged. "Is that a tiger?" Sishi breathed in terror. Jihan's face was grim. "Yes, an overwhelmingly powerful mutant." Jihan's eyes narrowed. He'd never seen a mutant like this before. This creature was on a whole other level. Meanwhile, Guy and the other bystander were paralyzed with fear, speechless at the monster before them. Jihan spun around, shouting that he needed their help to take it down. But Guy was already sprinting away, screaming that it was hopeless. Even with 4 of them, they stood no chance. "Cowards!" Jihan cursed under his breath. He knew they were right. Just him and Siyu? It wasn't enough to defeat this beast. The monster stomped, shattering the very ground beneath it. As it charged, Jihan yelled a warning to Siyu. "It's coming!" He drew his sword in a flash. At the very last second, he barely managed to parry the mutant's ferocious attack. Jihan felt the overwhelming power behind the blow. If not for his elemental energy, his sword would have been obliterated. He had to end this with one decisive strike. But in that moment of hesitation, the mutant swung its razor-sharp claws right at him. Just in the nick of time, Sayu's spell erupted, shielding Jihan from the fatal blow. "Now's your chance," she yelled. "Hit it with everything you've got." He unleashed his ultimate skill, channeling every last drop of elemental power into his blade. But the attack was useless. The creature didn't even flinch. It retaliated with a brutal slam to Jihan's head, sending him flying as he coughed up blood. Jihan groaned in agony. I didn't even see it move." As he fell, Sihu launched her wind arrow ability at the monster. The mutant casually glanced at the incoming barrage, then effortlessly weaved through every single arrow she fired. Seihu was defenseless, with no way to block the creature's imminent counterattack. In that critical moment, Yuri Min and her chinchilla appeared to save the day. The tiny companion immediately charged the massive mutant. It snatched Seihu from the jaws of death just in time, and the two creatures clashed in an epic showdown. The chinchilla actually sent the giant tiger flying, staring at the massive crater it left. Seihu breathed, "That little guy, he saved me at the last possible second." "I heard an explosion nearby," Yuri Min explained, "but I never imagined I'd find you all here." Esihu could only stare, recognizing Yuri Min from the Snowflake Guild. Yuri's gaze fell upon Jihan. "You look like you're in terrible shape," she said grimly. She ordered Seihu to grab Jihan and escape immediately, promising she would handle the mutant. But Siyu protested, suggesting they call for backup. Yuri Min simply smiled, assuring her it was fine. "No saber-toothed tiger," she declared, "is a match for me." Chiyu saw a new light ignite in Yuri's eyes, her entire aura shifting. With that, Yuri leaped from the building, descending like a hawk upon her prey. Meanwhile, the chinchilla was already overwhelming the tiger, landing a punch so devastating the beast spat blood. A storm of blows rained down and more blood sprayed through the air, still airborne. Yuri called out to her companion, Chilla, who instantly looked up. Pointing at the mutant, Yuri unleashed a powerful spell that shot towards the tiger like a bolt of lightning. Chilla, who had been pummeling the beast into submission, gracefully leaped aside, clearing the path for Yuri's attack. The tiger was instantly encased in a tomb of ice. But after a few moments, the prison shattered, as the beast broke free with a furious roar. Yuri landed softly near Chilla, remarking, "It can still move even after that attack. This one truly is on another level." The enraged mutant charged straight for them. Yuri once again fired a blast of concentrated ice. Her spell was faster this time, but still not enough. The mutant dodged every single shot with unnatural agility. Even as the tiger closed the distance, Yuri scanned for a weakness. Suddenly, the mutant tiger collapsed, its knee joint completely frozen. "That should keep it from moving for a while," Yuri stated calmly. She explained that while saber-toothed tigers possess immense physical power, their flexibility is a double-edged sword. When their muscles contract from her ice, their joints can no longer support their massive weight. Yuri stared down at the fallen beast. The fight is over. Your mistake was letting my ice arrows land. Watching from above, Sihu was in awe. She's incredible. We never stood a chance. The battered Jihan called out her name and she rushed to his side. He urged her to go help Yuri, but Sihu shook her head. There's no need. Yuri has already won. But Jihan knew better. No, he insisted. This battle is far from over. He activated his ability, his eyes glowing as he calculated Yuri's true odds of victory. The result sent a chill down his spine. Yuri was in grave danger. As she moved in for the finishing blow, Yuri promised the tiger a swift end. But in an instant, the creature shot back to its feet, roaring with rage. From the shadows, more saber-toothed tigers emerged, surrounding her completely. A system window flashed. Her success rate had plummeted below 10%. The entire pack lunged for Yuri, ready to tear her limb from limb. From his high vantage point, Jihoon saw every single tiger converge on one spot. He knew this was their only chance. It was now or never. Jihoon turned to Sihu. Can you use levitation to get us to the ground? He asked urgently. She nodded, admitting she wasn't very skilled with it. Jihoon pulled her close into an embrace. Use the skill on my signal, he whispered. A deep blush crept onto her cheeks as she breathed his name. Clutching a glowing green orb, Jihoon declared this was the only path left. And with those words, he plunged from the rooftop. With Sihu cradled in his arms, Jun unleashed his haste ability. Wait, what's the plan? Sihu cried as they plummeted toward the ground. Below, a pack of saber-toothed tigers stared up, ready to rip them from the sky. But in a flash, a barrage of spells rained down on the ferocious beasts. The caster was none other than Yuri Min. Her attention diverted, a tiger lunged from her blind spot, but in the nick of time, Chill leaped in, taking the blow for her. Instantly, both Chilla and Yuri were completely trapped by the beasts. They're endless. Yuri grunted, her energy fading fast from the constant battle. Surrounded by the vicious swarm, she knew she had to locate the mutant fast before it had a chance to attack again, or regenerate its wounds. That's when she heard a strange noise from high above. A noise made by the two fools who had just jumped off the building. Sihu, levitation now! Jihoon roared. She didn't hesitate for a second. Sihu activated her levitation skill. Jihoon felt their fall slow to a crawl, but he knew it wasn't enough to stop them completely. He had no choice but to pour his own precious mana into halting their fall, even though he knew he should be conserving every drop. Did you manage it? Sihu asked, her voice trembling. Jihoon readied his power, declaring he was locked onto the perfect spot. All he had to do, he growled, was slice through it just like that mutant cockatrice. He then unleashed a devastating shockwave on every tiger below. The ground erupted in sheer destruction, and just like that, the two of them landed on their feet, completely safe. But the cost was high. Jihoon was completely spent, his mana reserves empty. Yuri Min stormed over, her eyes blazing with fury. I told you to stay away, Jihoon shot back. Is that how you thank the people who came to help? I never needed your help, Yuri insisted. I had everything under control. Jihoon then demanded, so what's your deal with these tigers anyway? Chilla shot him a death glare, a look Sihu did not miss. Sihu screamed, your attack missed some of them. We need to be careful. Jihoon pointed out, those aren't the same tigers from before. The mutant. It was somehow summoning more of them into the fight. Yuri shot back that its joints should have been completely wrecked. Jihoon guessed it must have some kind of powerful regeneration ability. I've never seen a power like that, she retorted. For just a second, her mind flashed back to a memory from long ago. A girl covered in what looked like crimson was screaming for her to get away. While Yuri Min was lost in thought, Jihoon yelled, the mutant is already badly damaged. We can end this now. But as he said it, Yuri Min suddenly charged straight for the creature. Yuri! Jihoon shouted her name, but she didn't seem to hear him continuing her reckless advance. He couldn't understand why she'd suddenly gone crazy and rushed in alone. Turning back, Jihoon ordered Sihu to give him cover, and she agreed immediately. The tiger surged towards Yuri Min like a tidal wave. She unleashed her spells, wiping out an entire pack in a blast of light. Now face to face with the mutant, she began casting again. Another tiger lunged, trying to sink its fangs into her foot. Get out of my way! Yuri roared, throwing it aside like a doll. But in that split second, her guard was down, and the mutant charged in, claws extended. She saw with horror that the mutant had regenerated at an unbelievable speed. The roaring creature kept swiping at her relentlessly. At the same time, Jihoon launched his own attack, remarking, eating her is a bad idea. He quipped that cold food would probably give the mutant a stomachache. Without a moment to spare, Jihoon closed the distance and hammered the creature with more attacks. This time, his strikes seemed to land, dealing real damage. Chilla saw an opening and jumped in to help Jihoon, with Sihu right behind her, ready to fight. As Jihoon charged the mutant for the final blow, he yelled, this is the end! But suddenly, Yuri Min leaped right in front of him, shouting, don't kill it! Jihoon managed to stop his attack just in time, his power halting inches from her. He demanded to know what she was doing, insisting he had to strike before it could regenerate. She explained that she had to capture it alive. Killing it was not an option. Is that really your plan? Move, he yelled at her. Tell me why. Why was she going this far? But while they argued, the mutant got back on its feet. It lunged. Straight for Yuri Min, ready to tear her to shreds. Sihu and Jihoon could only stand frozen, wondering what on earth she was thinking. The mutant roared again, and Sihu warned that every roar summoned more tigers. Jihoon's mind raced, trying to form a plan now that he was completely out of mana. From the background, a voice called the scene, pathetic as a gravity ability slammed down. Jihoon immediately demanded to know who was there. The person replied that Jihoon was still just an amateur, a voice he instantly recognized with a chill. The speaker continued saying that even though Jihoon passed the rank 4 exam, he was still weak and a disappointment. Another bystander remarked that he wasn't such an impressive prodigy after all, but a young woman said she was impressed he had held out for so long. The newcomers are Sukwon's crew, and he tells them to stop chattering and finish this quickly. The architect of this chaos scoffs. He knew they were coming. The level 3 dice guild, I presume. Misoyan Lim muses a smirk playing on his lips. I thought they'd at least send a level 1 squad. His assistant questions their next move. With a sigh, Misoyan Lim gives the command. We have no choice. We fall back. But don't think this was a total loss, he adds. The mana crystal is already spreading through its body. Even in these final moments, Misoyan Lim's eyes gleam with fascination. The power of the mana crystal? It's truly magnificent. Finally, he gives the order. Continue with the original plan. Meanwhile, Sukwon's crew stares in horror at the scene. What is happening to that thing? Sukian sighs unfazed. It just means more cleanup for the hero department. Just then, Jihan appears supported by his comrades. They rush towards Siu, but she waves them off defiant. I'm fine, I don't need any help. Chilla and Yuran stand frozen, sensing an entirely different aura nearby. A chilling presence that wasn't there before. One of them scans the area, eyes wide with alarm. The scene flashes forward. 1 week has passed. Jihan stares at his phone where the incident is headlining the day's news. So what happened in there? Someone asks. Sashimi bursts in, pointing at the screen. The MA zone we were in is all over the news. And you? Why are you so banged up? Jihan looks away. That's classified information for civilians. But Sashimi won't back down. Hey, I deserve to know we're partners. A flicker of regret crosses Jihan's mind. I never should have hired this guy. The truth of that day was grim. 8 heroes lost their lives in that MA zone. The hero department had completely misjudged the threat, underestimating the sheer number of saber-toothed tigers. The mutant's appearance had triggered a catastrophic infestation. The result was a tragedy on an unprecedented scale. Jihan confesses, a heavy guilt has weighed on me ever since. He continues, his voice low. It all felt orchestrated. This wasn't some random accident. And that mutant, it was different from all the others. He shakes his head, trying to dismiss the dark thoughts. Still, I shouldn't dwell on it. The hero department will release its investigation soon enough. Sashimi changes the subject. Speaking of which, I haven't seen Siyu today. She went to handle some personal matters, Jihan replies. She'll be back soon. At that very moment, a phone begins to ring. Sashimi's eyes widen. Whoa, I've never heard that phone get a call before. Jihan explains, it's a direct line used to communicate with all the guild's heroes. So why would someone be calling Epic on this line? He picks up the receiver. This is Epic. How can I... A cheerful voice cuts him off completely. Hello, this is Yuri Min from Snowflake. Jihan is stunned into silence. Yuri Min, is it really you? Sashimi's jaw hits the floor. Jihan stammers, to what do I owe the honor of this call? Sashimi whispers dramatically to no one in particular. Somebody get me some popcorn. Yuri Min apologizes for using the emergency line. It was the only way I could reach you. No, it's fine, Jihan reassures her. How are your injuries? She replies, they've almost completely healed. And you, how are you feeling? She asks. I'm fine, he tells her, though his heart is pounding. He can hear the nervousness in her voice. Something isn't right. She wouldn't call this line just to check up on him. Then she drops the bombshell. I know this is sudden, but would you go on a date with me today? Sashimi, now magically holding popcorn, explodes. Today? No way. The scene shifts to a sleek modern building. Sihu is on a video call with her father. How are you, Dad? She asks. His face is stern. I heard you fought a mutant in an MA zone. Are you hurt? She shakes her head. I'm not. He immediately begins to lecture her. You need to be more careful. Supports are always the first targets, you know this. She groans in frustration. Dad, please stop. You've told me this 1,000 times. But he presses on. If things go south, you run. Don't even look back. Dad, Sihu pleads, cutting him off. His tone softens slightly. It's a relief to know you've partnered with someone reliable. A faint blush appears on her cheeks. Jihan, he's been a huge help to me, and to the guild. She admits, a small smile on her face. If I hadn't met him, I think I'd still be stuck in the same place. I see, he says, his expression unreadable. Her father is introduced Jino Kim, the head of research in Kyoto, Tokyo. I'd like to meet this Jihan someday, he states. A hero who inherited his mother's powers. I have so many questions for him. An assistant appears on his end of the call. Sir, you need to review the sample that just arrived. I'm on my way, he replies, dismissing her. You go on ahead. He turns back to the screen. Daughter, I have to go. Wait, she calls out. When are you coming to Korea? His answer is predictable. On the anniversary of your mother's death. The call ends abruptly. She sighs. He hung up on me again? So typical. She stretches her arms over her head. All right, time to get this housework done. Just then, her own phone begins to chime. She glances at the screen, surprised. Why is he calling me? The scene cuts back to Jihan, now dressed to kill and looking impossibly handsome. Before he left, Sashimi had shoved a good luck charm into his hands. What kind of luck is this even for? Jihan wonders. I'm only wearing it because he wouldn't shut up about it, he mutters. Lost in thought, he doesn't notice the figure approaching until a familiar voice calls his name. Did I keep you waiting long? Jihan turns and his breath catches. This elegant vision before him looked nothing like the warrior from the MA zone. He'd just arrived, he said, and she breathed a sigh of relief. After they bantered about who was waiting longer, Yuri Min revealed she'd already booked a restaurant. Meanwhile, from their stakeout spot, Sashimi munched on popcorn, pointing out to Sihu that the pair were heading off to lunch. A storm of jealousy brewed inside Sihu. What in the world was Jihan thinking? This had to be Yuri's scheme to steal Jihan away. Her blood boiled. How dare she after firing arrows right at them? As the guildmaster Sihu couldn't let this stand. This was completely unacceptable. The scene shifts to the restaurant where Jihan and Yuri Min are already deep in conversation. Yuri noted the rich aroma of the coffee and Jihan quietly agreed, while Sihu's mind screamed that this was all wrong. Back at the table, Jihan complimented Yuri's deadly accurate dark throws. When he offered to carry her teddy bear, she quickly refused, insisting she was fine and didn't need his help. Sashimi muttered that the whole situation looked incredibly suspicious, but Sihu remained dangerously silent. Instead, she landed a solid punch on Sashimi, yelling, "This is obviously a date." With a fresh bruise, Sashimi whined, asking if she was just going to watch it happen. Sihu shot back that she had no right to interfere in Jihan's personal life. And yet, even though she knew she shouldn't get involved, an unsettling feeling lingered. The focus returns to Jihan and Yuri. Jihan admitted he'd had a good time, and Yuri confessed she felt much calmer now. With that, Jihan cut straight to the point. Tell me the real reason you called me here. When she feigned ignorance, he was clear. You didn't invite me just to chat. Yuri confessed she'd been waiting for him to ask. With a serious tone, she admitted she needed him to come with her somewhere. Jihan's mind raced. A hospital, he guessed. She confirmed his suspicion, explaining her sister was a patient there. Walking through the sterile hospital halls, Jihan wondered what tragedy had befallen her sister. He asked if he could see her. Without warning, his special ability flared to life. Yuri's voice was soft. The person in there is my sister. Instantly, a system window materialized before him. But instead of percentages, it showed a detailed diagnosis of the girl's condition. Jihan's eyes scanned the text, manic decoration syndrome. What could that be? It was then Yuri revealed the truth. Her sister was why she was obsessed with the tigers. She explained that a brutal tiger attack 4 years ago had left her sister in a deep coma. Ever since that day, she hasn't woken up, leaving the doctors utterly baffled. It all clicked for Jihan. This was the source of her fierce obsession. Yuri confessed she thought if she just kept fighting, she'd find a cure. But now she knew she'd been wrong all along. She had clung to the hope that the mutant factor was the key, but today's reports shattered that belief. There was no connection at all. Yuri finally apologized for her reckless actions, admitting she had endangered both Sihu and Jihan. But Jihan told her not to worry. Now he finally understood everything. And at that very moment, his ability activated again. This time, it calculated Yuri's critical importance to the future of Epic. In his mind, a single thought echoed Epic needed her. A realization struck him like lightning. This had happened before, the day he first met Sashimi. He had stopped Sihu, and in that instant, his power had revealed just how vital Sashimi would be. Jihan felt a chill. It was as if his power was a living entity, guiding him step by step toward his ultimate revenge. His ability had never been this active before. He admitted to himself the real reason he'd hired Sashimi was to understand this very power. And now the same phenomenon was happening with Yuri Min. Jihan was lost in a sea of questions. If Sashimi was one of 4 essential members, then Yuri Min was the second piece of the puzzle. He still needed to find 3 more people. Yuri saw his pale, overwhelmed expression and asked if he was okay. He brushed it off, claiming he was just a little dizzy. But his mind was racing. The first time his ability calculated Epic's success rate, it was a solid 99%. But now, it was clear new conditions had been added to his quest. A wave of weakness washed over Jihan. This power was taking a heavy toll. Even so, he hardened his resolve. If this was the price of victory, he would gladly pay it. Jihan turned to Yuri, his gaze sharp. "How long have you been hunting those tigers?" She replied quietly. "About 4 years." Jihan pressed on. "And in all that time, you haven't found a single clue to wake your sister, have you?" Yuri could only admit he was right. He continued, "I don't know your methods, but it's clear they aren't working. It's time for a new strategy." "What kind of strategy?" she asked, intrigued. Jihan decided to give her a practical example. He rolled up his sleeve, pointing to a small cut. "For a simple wound, you clean it and apply an ointment, right?" He then asked, "But do you even know what's in that ointment?" As he expected, Yuri had no idea. Jihan explained it was a common ingredient called Centella asiatica, just an ordinary herb you could find on any mountain or field. This simple plant, he explained, held powerful antibacterial and anti-inflammatory properties among other benefits. Jihan continued to explain a chilling theory. While plants hadn't yet mutated into monsters, some researchers believed it was an inevitability. For healing, it wasn't the stem that mattered, but the plant's potent extracts. An interesting perspective, Yuri thought. The plant wasn't the cause of her pain, yet it held the key to her sister's recovery. Gazing at her sister's sleeping form, Yuri wondered if this was a metaphor for her own life. But perhaps that was a stretch. And it certainly didn't connect to the tigers. Jihan saw it then. Yuri already knew everything he was telling her. She had simply resolved to fight on no matter the cost. Her burning desire for revenge against the beast that had harmed her sister was that overwhelming. Seeing this, Jihan made his move. "I have a proposal for you." "A proposal?" she asked. He revealed his true purpose. He wanted to recruit her for the Epic Guild. Yuri was stunned. You really want me to join?" He confirmed it without hesitation. If she agreed, he vowed to personally help with her sister's treatment. A faint blush graced her cheeks as he assured her this was no empty promise, but a binding contract. His unique ability calculated the odds, but the system offered no new information, only confirming the results he already knew. Regardless, Jihan knew he had to have her on his team. Yuri asked for time to consider his life-changing offer. Jihan told her that was fine. She could take all the time she needed. The conversation was over. It was best to let her process this massive decision. "I have to go," he said, turning to leave. Yuri quickly apologized for burdening him with her family's dark situation. His eyes then fell to his wrist, remembering the amulet Sashimi had given him. Jihan took it off, holding it out to her. "I have something for you." When Yuri asked what it was, he called it a good luck charm, suggesting she give it to her sister. "Thank you," she said with a small smile. "My sister loves things like this." As he walked away, his voice carried back. "I hope we meet again soon." A happy blush spread across her face as she waved him goodbye. The scene then shifts to an imposing modern skyscraper. Inside, powerful figures were gathered, the air thick with tension. One of them, Jung Park, the master of Kuros, noted grimly that they were late. Another voice on a speaker complained they had been kept waiting far too long. Jung Park made a decision. The meeting would begin now, even with one guild still absent. Just then, Doha strode in. "Who in their right mind schedules a meeting at this hour?" He complained, adding, "It's not like anyone important is even here." His assistant whispered that they should have arrived sooner. But Doha just scoffed. "I have enough to deal with. Why did I even have to come?" A sharp voice cut him off. "For someone arriving so late, you have quite a lot to say." It was Hunan, the fiery leader of the Warriors Guild, who stated, "Everyone has been waiting for you." Doha shot back a venomous smirk. "Well, look who's back from the dead. I thought your entire guild was wiped out in the rank 1 MA. In a blind rage, Hunan slammed his hands on the table and leaped to his feet. "It'll take more than that to bring down my guild," he roared. "We conquered that hell years ago." Another voice, calm and dangerous, cut through the noise. "Lower your voices. Still so immature despite being guild leaders." The speaker was Gangchan, master of the Red Hall Guild. He looked down on Doha with contempt. "I thought you would have learned your lesson after I saved your pathetic life." Furious, Doha's eyes blazed. "You got a problem with me. Let's settle this outside right now." Gangchan simply laughed. "No, why would I waste my precious time on someone as weak as you?" Their rivalry was the stuff of legends, a history of 103 brutal duels. Gangchan held 52 wins and 51 losses, while Doha held 51 wins and 52 losses. A woman nearby sighed. "They're acting like a pair of children. Why do men always feel the need to prove themselves?" This was Myojo Kim, the elegant owner of the Snowball Guild. Doha turned his attention to her. "It has been a while, hasn't it? About 3 years, I'd guess." Myojo's eyes narrowed when Doha commented that her new look made her seem old. She demanded furiously, "Who are you calling old?" Doha, however, simply shrugged. "Some things never change." His assistant winced, thinking that no woman ever wants to hear she looks old. The meeting leader finally called for order. "Now that everyone has graced us with their presence, we can begin." He explained the grave reason for the summons. "There has been another major incident in Inen." He paused, letting the weight of his next words sink in. "This time we found evidence that the IUPC was behind it." A wave of shock silenced the entire room. Doha was the first to explode. "Those damn protesters!" He added, This means we can finally storm the IUPC headquarters with our weapons drawn. Someone immediately told Doha to think before he spoke. Myojo calmly corrected him. We can't do much with such little evidence. Why do you think the guilds haven't already taken action? The meeting leader agreed with a solemn nod. Myojo is right. With limited proof, our hands are tied. We must be cautious. The presenter's voice cut through the room. I'm not finished yet, he declared, forcing everyone's eyes back to the screen. An image flashed into view. The horrifying saber-toothed tiger mutant that appeared in Injin. Murmurs erupted across the hall. What kind of abomination was this? None of them had ever witnessed such a creature. Gangchan spoke up, remarking on the monster's grotesque form. The presenter nodded grimly, confirming it was indeed an atypical mutant. He revealed that the hero department was receiving reports of similar freaks, like the red spider found on Mount Geen. There was also a sudden surge of carnivorous plants discovered in a private field. And all these new mutants, he warned, began appearing right after the saber-tooth incident. Hunan finally interrupted. So what? It wasn't exactly rare for different kinds of monsters to emerge. The presenter agreed that on the surface they weren't special. But a DNA analysis had revealed a terrifying secret. Every one of these new monsters shared a unique genetic modification, one that originated from that very first tiger mutant. Get to the point, Miyagin demanded. What is this modification? The presenter's answer was chillingly simple. It was their mana crystals. He reminded the room of a fundamental truth. Every mutant possesses a mana crystal. The research department had long theorized that mutants are born from a massive fusion of mana. But he stressed that mana crystals were still a deep mystery. With their current technology, creating one was utterly impossible. And yet, the crystal found inside the saber-toothed tiger was artificial. It had been engineered for one specific purpose, to be transformed into a liquid. The crowd exploded with questions, someone shouting that he'd just said they lacked the technology for such a thing. Doha's assistant leaned in close, whispering, Sir, do you know anything about this? Doha's eyes narrowed. He knew little, only that it was a method that worked for elementals. In that instant, he understood. This was why the mutants were surging. It was all a twisted experiment, to liquefy mana itself. The pieces falling into place, Doha announced to the entire room that the culprit behind this was obvious. Gangshan found it intriguing, but demanded proof for such a bold accusation. He then questioned what the IUPC had to do with any of this. The presenter explained that on the day of the incident, several suspicious individuals were spotted inside the MA. They had drone footage, he said, and facial recognition had already identified one of them. The man on the screen was Masung Lim, 33 years old, and a suspected manager at the IUPC. The presenter added that up until 4 years ago, Masung Lim was a researcher in the magical engineering department. But he was dismissed for causing disturbances. Gangshan latched onto that word. Disturbances, he pressed. What exactly did he do? The official record was damning. He stole a mana crystal from the research center and performed illegal experiments on humans. Based on the mountain of evidence, the association had identified Masung Lim as their prime suspect. They were officially requesting all guilds present to aid in his immediate capture. Later, the scene shifts to a bus stop where Jihoon is waiting alone. As he stood there, he could hear whispers from nearby people commenting on his sharp clothes and his striking looks. Could he be a hero? Someone wondered aloud. Only for another to scoff. Why would a hero ever take the bus? Jihoon paid them no mind, his attention locked on his phone. Why wasn't she replying to his messages? He desperately needed to talk to her. He thought about his offer to Yuri, still waiting for an answer. But maybe it was time to tell Tsiha he wanted to scout her too. Even without his insight ability, he knew a talent like Yuri would be an incredible asset for the guild. The only obstacle, as always, was money. A recruit of Yuri's caliber wouldn't come cheap. Still, they had some cash left from the monsters Sashimi handled. Perhaps they could negotiate a reasonable contract. As he was lost in his thoughts, a car suddenly pulled up to the curb. The driver leaned over. Hey, you getting in? Jihoon snapped out of it and quickly hopped in. He asked the driver to take him to the building on the 5th corner, and the man happily agreed. Then the driver glanced at him. Are you a hero by any chance? When Jihoon confirmed, the man burst out laughing. Wow, I never thought I'd have a hero in my car, he exclaimed. I'm telling everyone I know. Jihoon just smiled, saying that was nice to hear. The driver kept going, sizing him up. With looks like that, you must be from a famous guild warrior's Red Hall, maybe even Dice. A little embarrassed, Jihoon admitted he was from a small guild called Epic, figuring the man had never heard of it. But the driver's eyes widened as he repeated the name, Epic. Wait, the man asked. Is that the guild that took care of all those saber-toothed tigers at the Greenscape apartments? Jihoon was floored. How did you know that? The driver grinned. Because I live there. You really think so? Jihan pressed, skeptical. A heavy silence filled the car as Jihan studied the driver, whose excuse of coincidence felt hollow. The driver muttered under his breath that it was a dark day for Lux having to see something like that. Just then, a hybrid girl slipped into a nearby alley. The driver's voice dripped with disdain. Hybrids, they give me the creeps. Why is that? Jihan questioned. The driver looked at him astonished. Haven't you heard the rumors? Jihan replied coolly. She just looks like a normal high school student to me.
Student or not, the driver shot back, that thing isn't a person.
He continued, his voice laced with fear. Maybe heroes see them differently, but for regular people like us, an attack from a hybrid means you're dead in seconds. Jihan's thoughts turned inward. He could understand where the man's deep-seated fear was coming from. He recalled the invasion, a time when humanity was hunted by all manner of creatures.
It was natural for that terror to linger, but still, she was just a child. He couldn't justify judging her so harshly. And in that moment, his thoughts turned to CU.
He finally understood. She must have spent her entire life crushed under the weight of this exact same fear and prejudice.
Snapping back to reality, Jihan noticed something deeply unsettling. A group of men were tailing the girl, and his instincts screamed that danger was near.
"Stop the car!" he commanded immediately.
But the driver refused, complaining that they were almost at the destination, and he still needed his payment.
At first, the girl seemed completely unaware, but a nervous glance over her shoulder confirmed her worst fears. She broke into a desperate sprint. "Catch her!" the men shouted. One of them lunged, clamping a cloth over her mouth to muffle her terrified screams. Her kidnappers sneered with delight. A young hybrid. We've just hit the jackpot. They gloated about how thrilled the VIPs would be with their new prize. But then a voice cut through the darkness like a blade. "What do you think you're doing?" It was Jihan. He gave them one chance. "I'll count to 3. Let her go, or you all die." He then launched himself forward, the numbers spilling out in a single deadly breath. 1, 2, 3. "Hey, count properly," one of the thugs yelled. But Jihan's attack was suddenly intercepted by a new arrival. It was a mountain of a man cracking his knuckles and spoiling for a fight. "Stay out of our business," the behemoth growled. Jihan stared him down, wondering, who is this monster? As their battle ignited in the alley, the scene shifts to the headquarters of Epic.
A phone on a desk was buzzing nonstop, flooded with a stream of messages. Jihoon noticed the insistent vibrations and picked it up to see what the commotion was about. "Why isn't she answering Jihan's texts?" Sashimi asked. Sahun brushed it off. "It's not Jihan, just some debt collectors."
"She has no reason to ignore him," Sahun insisted. Sashimi just teased back, someone's still jealous. Sahun couldn't help but wonder why he was so late and why he was sending so many texts. Then her eyes widened in absolute shock as she finally read the messages. They were about a kidnapping. The view snaps back to Jihan in the alley. The kidnappers held the hybrid girl hostage while the colossal thug stood in Jihan's path. "Are you with them?" Jihan asked coldly. "Step aside now and you can walk away from this." But the brute just cut him off. "You move." With a furious roar, he charged at Jihan. "Time to die!" In that single moment, Jihan knew that words were utterly useless. The thug foolishly declared that the hero was done for. But in a flash of movement, Jihan vanished, reappearing right behind him. "The hero you're looking for," he said with chilling calm, "is right here." The thug spun around, screaming that the hero was already dead. He swung a heavy rock at Jihan's head, but Jihan blocked the strike just in the nick of time. A strange, powerful energy began to radiate from the burly thug. Jihan realized it had to be a mana-infused attack. Otherwise, his block would have failed completely. For a split second, he wondered if this brute could also be a hero. Meanwhile, the other thugs were shoving the girl into a van. Jihan frantically tried to find a way to stop their escape when the big guy ready to punch, warning him, "Don't you dare look away." Jihan instantly leaped aside, narrowly dodging a massive rock the thug had hurled at him. Jihan wanted to avoid damaging the neighborhood since it was a civilian area. But it seemed he had no choice. He would have to use another 1% of his power. Just as he prepared to end this with a single decisive blow, another person appeared, telling them to stop. This newcomer said he couldn't let them tear up the alley. He told Jihan he was lucky they were in a rush because they normally kill all witnesses. Jihan asked if they were all part of the same crew. But the white-haired man turned to his partner, asking if he'd forgotten their orders to handle the mission quietly. He scolded the big guy for making such a scene on his first job. The white-haired man threatened that the boss might need to have a word with him, but the bulky thug insisted that wouldn't be necessary. He then punched a nearby wall, sending a shower of bricks flying right at Jihan. After that, both the bulky thug and the white-haired man said, "Maybe next time," and then they simply vanished. Jihan sheathed his swords, realizing they were gone. He wondered who those two were and what they could possibly want. Using his leaping skill, Jihan immediately started scaling the nearby buildings. He activated his ability, desperately trying to find which way the van had gone. He kept leaping from one rooftop to the next, knowing that if he kept this up, he would eventually find their route. Right in the middle of his investigation, his phone shattered the silence. The caller ID flashed Sihu's name. Jihoon answered, asking if she was heading to the address he sent. She confirmed, then immediately demanded answers about the kidnapping. Jihan frantically reported that he saw them take a hybrid girl. Sahu confirmed she was en route and that the police were on their way. "Just be careful," Jan warned her before ending the call. Yu stood frozen, her mind struggling to grasp the horrifying news. She couldn't shake the thought. A person from another race? Kidnapped. She knew these vile crimes were happening more and more. Sihu was left with a chilling question. Why were half humans the ones being targeted? Meanwhile, the van Jihan was tailing had stopped in a desolate, forgotten place. As he closed in, he growled under his breath. Finally, found you. Moving like a shadow, Jihan confirmed it was the target vehicle. Getting closer, he spotted one of the kidnappers asleep at the wheel, clearly waiting for his crew. The thug's peaceful slumber was shattered by a sharp, violent knock against his window. Still dazed with sleep, the man mumbled, asking if the job was done. But the face staring back at him was Jihan's. Panic flared as the guy fumbled for his phone, shocked at how fast he'd been tracked. But Jihan's fist smashed through the glass, snatching the device in an instant. Gripping the phone, Jihan's voice was laced with ice. "Didn't you hear me knocking? Stop wasting time and get out," he commanded. The thug stammered, asking if Jihan was a hero, claiming he could explain everything. Jihan's reply was cold and final. "We'll talk once you're out of the van." In the next moment, Jihan had hoisted the man into the air, his voice booming. "I'm the hero who discovered this crime scene. That means your life is in my hands and this is your last chance." Jihan demanded answers, but the terrified thug could only whimper. The scene shifts to a dark warehouse where terrified captives were hooded and bound. The sound of approaching footsteps echoed like a death sentence. A man in a sharp suit appeared carrying a heavy bag. He dropped it before another figure whose face twisted into a delighted grin. A bald man with a scarred scalp asked, "Is that today's delivery?" The suit confirmed it was. "The half-human cat girl the client ordered," he said with a smirk. The moment they ripped the tape from her mouth, she let out a piercing scream, begging them not to end her life. One of the men just cackled. "This one's got some spirit." She desperately offered them all her money, pleading for them to let her go. The bald man sneered. "And how much are we talking about? When she choked out, it was about 2,000,001, he scoffed. "Nowhere near enough." She sobbed that it was every single one she had saved after weeks of hard labor. "You must have worked hard for that," the bald man said, his tone dripping with mockery. "But let me be clear, your money is worthless to me." He leaned in his voice a venomous whisper. "I stand to make 900,000,001 just by selling you. Your buyers," he revealed with a sickening smile, "have some experiments planned. So don't be sad, you're receiving special treatment." He continued his taunts, suggesting it was a better outcome than being butchered in a slaughterhouse. Wasn't it? The camera then pans out, revealing the cold, lifeless bodies of countless other victims scattered across the horrifying scene. The bald man addressed his subordinate. "The client arrives in 40 minutes. Get this place cleaned up immediately." The assistant nodded and moved to obey, but the girl's voice sharp as a blade cut through the air. "Don't you understand what you're doing is a monstrous crime?" she cried. Without an ounce of shame, the bald man simply fired back a question of his own. "What do you think people see?" he asked, "when they look at you in this helpless, pathetic state?" He then declared that after everything humanity had endured, the one thing they truly desired was revenge. "You're a monster," he spat, just as a brilliant aura began to radiate from her body. She tried to activate her berserk mode, a desperate gambit to escape. But something was terribly wrong. Her body wouldn't respond, as if her mana was being suppressed. In that instant, the assistant appeared from the shadows and brutally slammed her head into the concrete floor. "Your precious mana is useless against me," he sneered, leaving her completely defenseless. Dazed, the girl asked what he was doing. He answered calmly, "I'm draining your power, making sure you can't cause any more trouble." The bald man watched from afar, casually warning his assistant not to damage the goods. He muttered that feline hybrids were always a handful and had to be thoroughly subdued. The boss decided she'd learned her lesson. "Take her to the waiting room. If she fights back again, don't be gentle." As the assistant grabbed her, a sudden crash from the ceiling brought everyone to a halt. The bald man glanced up, annoyed by the interruption. His subordinate tried to reassure him. "I have guards posted outside, sir. They'll handle any disturbance." But then a figure dropped from above, landing with an impact that shook the very ground. Through the dust, the protagonist emerged. Both the boss and his lackey could only stare in utter disbelief. Jihan stood before them, his voice cutting through the silence. "Human trafficking is illegal." The assistant's eyes widened in recognition and fear. He turned to his boss and stammered, "It's him, the guy who tried to stop us earlier." The bald man's face twisted in rage. "Why wasn't I informed about this?" he roared. His assistant stammered, claiming he thought the guards had already handled Jihoon. All the while, Jihoon observed them in silence, deducing that these two were the ones in charge. He realized the situation on the ground was 1,000 times worse than it appeared from the roof. Jihoon's voice cut through the tension. "My original plan was to call the police, but that has changed. I'll handle this myself. You're nothing but monsters that need to be put down." Trembling with raw fear, the bald man groveled for his life, insisting he was merely following orders. Jihoon was unmoved. "Pathetic," he said, his eyes like ice. "Tell me who gave the orders, now." The man bowed his head in defeat, promising to give up every single name in exchange for his life. But as his head was lowered, a sickening maniacal smile spread across his face. In a sudden roar, the bald man shrieked at his guards, "Kill him! Attack him right now!" In response, Jihoon merely activated his sampling ability, and in the blink of an eye, he vanished. The guards scanned the room in a panic, completely baffled as to where their target had gone. Suddenly, a voice echoed from high above them. It was Jihoon. "I'm right here," he announced, looking down on their every move.
The guards exchanged terrified glances as Jihoon spoke again. "You're surprisingly good at hiding your presence. With skills that polished one might even mistake you for heroes."
Not waiting for a reply, Jihoon exploded into action, becoming a blur of swift, devastating attacks. As one of the henchmen tried to strike him from behind, Jihoon masterfully evaded and countered in one fluid motion. The bald man could only stare in utter disbelief, muttering, "Impossible. A rank 5 shouldn't possess that kind of power." "Don't expect things to go your way," Jihoon declared, renewing his assault with even greater intensity. In moments, the bodies of the boss's thugs and his right-hand man were scattered across the floor, utterly defeated. Jihoon walked to the captive girl and gently pulled the tape from her mouth. Still dazed, she whispered, "Who are you?" "I'm here to get you out of this nightmare," Jihoon replied. "The police are on their way, but first I need to ask you a question." "I have to give the authorities a full report," he explained. "Do you remember everything that happened here?" The cat girl confirmed that she did. But as she turned her head, her eyes landed on the carnage strewn across the room. Jihoon's voice softened with regret. "I'm sorry," he said. "The other children who were here, I couldn't do anything for them." Tears began to stream down the cat girl's face as she cried out, "Why am I treated like a monster? I never asked to be born with this body," she sobbed. "Why does everyone hate me so much?" Jihoon watched in silence, wanting to comfort her, but finding no words that could possibly help. Just then, the police arrived, confirming that a hero from the Epic Guild had neutralized all the kidnappers. The camera zoomed in on the catgirl's face, capturing the profound despair etched upon it. The scene shifts to an old traditional Japanese-style house. There, the manager of the IUPC is speaking to a mysterious young man, thanking him for their meeting.
"I am always open to meeting again," the young man replied coolly.
The manager bowed his head slightly. "Thank you once more, Sanjem, for the valuable information you provided." "That intel was extremely useful," the manager added with a smirk. "We had almost managed to manipulate the rising human." The mysterious young man confirmed he'd been tracking the news and monitoring all the recent movements. He then issued a warning. "The association is watching you. Can your organization continue to operate without problems?" "Please do not worry," the manager assured him. "Everything is under control and proceeding exactly as we planned."
"I want zero complications," the young man warned. "Far too much news is breaking in one day." Curious, the manager asked him to elaborate.
The young man mentioned a potential plague in the area. "We required materials from a certain warehouse, but the police appeared and completely ruined our plans." "I'm not certain if it was a coincidence," he continued. "But the very same hero who took down the cybercat was also present at that warehouse." The manager seemed surprised, but quickly tried to placate the young man, promising a swift and silent resolution. "I expect an efficient solution with no delays," the mysterious young man demanded before ending the call. After their conversation, the scene cuts back to the kidnapper's hideout. Police officers were now swarming the area. One reported that they had found 12 children alive. Sadly, the other victims were not so lucky and had not survived. Jihoon was speaking with a couple of officers when he heard his name being called. He turned to see Seo. She rushed toward him immediately, asking, "What's going on? Are the children safe?" Jihoon's expression was grim. "I managed to save half of them. The other half were already gone." Seo looked horrified and asked about the people responsible. "I didn't kill any of them," he told her. "The police are taking over the full investigation from here." In his mind, he observed her terrified expression. It made perfect sense to him, since she wasn't human either. Jihoon explained this was just the tip of the iceberg. Keeping the kidnappers alive was their only way to expose the entire network. He revealed a crucial clue. The criminals mentioned a mysterious hipster client who was supposed to meet them, but that client would never show with police swarming the area. After passing this intel to the cops, an officer assured him they'd take it from here, telling Jihoon to head home. But Jihoon felt a sudden tension in the air. He asked if something was wrong. The officer admitted one of the victims was asking to speak with him. As Jihoon wondered who the officer brought over the small half-human catgirl, she timidly apologized for being a bother, saying she just had one question. Sihu quickly reassured her, telling the girl everything was perfectly fine. Jihoon instantly understood. She didn't want to go with the police. She wanted him to take her home. The girl explained she lived at a place called Blue Sky at the Top, a home for vulnerable children of other species. It was an orphanage known as the best and safest in the entire country for at-risk kids. The fact that a child from there had been targeted sent a chill down his spine. As his mind raced, his eyes landed on a girl who instantly captivated his attention.
She looked at him and asked who he was before suddenly dashing towards someone standing just a few feet away.
The rescued girl Riggs threw herself into the arms of the woman waiting for them. The other hybrid Sihu admitted she hadn't even sensed their approach. Riggs glanced back at Jihoon and Sihu, then told the woman everything was fine and that she could continue. The woman formally introduced herself as Ji-young, the director of Blue Sky. She explained the police had called her asking if Jihoon and Sihu were the heroes who found the missing girl. With a deep, respectful bow, she thanked them for saving Riggs. Sihu brushed it off, saying it was simply her duty as a hero.
The director then invited them inside for tea, assuring them it would only be for a moment. The three of them stepped into the facility,
And Jihoon remarked on how quiet it was for an orphanage. The director explained that at this late hour, the children were all sound asleep. But right on cue, 3 kids burst from a room shouting that Riggs was finally back. One of them rushed forward for a hug as the director gently scolded them to get back to bed. A child worriedly asked if Riggs was hurt, while another sighed in relief. They were just glad she was home safe. Jihoon quietly noted the children looked like they hadn't slept a wink. The director apologized for the commotion. Riggs then offered to put the children back to bed herself, telling the adults to go on ahead. Jihoon couldn't help but be impressed by her resilience, especially after the ordeal she'd been through. Soon, the 3 of them sat in a small office waiting for Riggs to join them. The director apologized once more for the children's boundless energy, but Jihoon replied that it was refreshing to see them acting so freely. With a downcast look, the director admitted that she had carelessly let slip news of the kidnapping to the police. Because of her mistake, she explained none of the children could sleep staying up all night waiting for answers. Jihoon saw his opening and asked if any other children besides Riggs had been taken from this orphanage. A smile of relief crossed the director's face as she confirmed Riggs was the only one involved in this incident, but she lamented that other facilities weren't so fortunate. Hearing this, Jihoon's expression hardened. He asked if there had been similar cases before. Just then, a quiet voice apologized for interrupting their serious conversation. Jihoon turned to see who had entered. A woman with striking red hair walked in, carrying a tray with 3 cups of tea. The director thanked a woman named Leela for staying up so late. Leela simply replied that it was her duty. Her eyes briefly flickered toward Jihoon as she asked the director if these were the people she spoke of. The director confirmed they were. Leela bowed deeply, thanking both heroes for rescuing Riggs. The director then added that Leela had endured a similar tragedy. 4 years ago, 2 children were taken in the same way, but only Leela made it back alive. Jihoon quickly apologized for prying. Sihu then asked if there was any way they could help offering a donation from their guild. The director thanked her, but with a weary kindness, she politely declined the offer. She explained that many people had offered their help over the years. Looking at them, she said most people just make empty promises. When they needed it most, a major financial group that had pledged support completely abandoned them. The director confessed only one guild truly stood by them in their darkest hour. That guild was Dice, led by the hero named Doha. Without his guild's intervention, she admitted she never would have found Leela. Jihoon's mind reeled. This was 4 years ago, back when Doha had a reputation as a troublemaker. The director continued, her voice heavy with memory, saying that back then, the reactions from their other supporters were very, very different. The hero's legacy was a bitter one, leaving countless non-human races with deep-seated resentment. Jihoon saw the harsh truth of it all. In this world, even an act of kindness often came with strings attached. The director's heart was torn. She desperately wanted to accept their help, but feared the unknown consequences. Siha listened intently, tucking a stray strand of hair behind her ear. She looked the director in the eye, saying that if that was her only fear, then she had nothing to worry about. What could she possibly mean? In that moment, Siha dropped a bombshell, revealing that she too was a hybrid. The director and Leela stared in shock. Leela broke the silence, asking if Siha was a half-elf. The director couldn't believe it. She thought Siha was the guildmaster. Siha confirmed the guild was indeed founded by a half-elf, but dismissed it as nothing special. She spoke of a painful past, a life filled with scorn for being who she was. The prejudice had been so severe, she was once forced to abandon her duty as a guardian. Her gaze then shifted to Jihoon, noting that some people choose to understand you rather than blindly cast judgment. There are still people in this world you can truly place your faith in. Siha declared the director was one of those very people. A spark of hope ignited in the director's eyes. Perhaps something could be done after all. In that instant, she believed these two might be the ones to truly change everything. As she watched them, a gentle breeze swept through the room. The wind drifted toward the door, like a harbinger of new hope for those in desperate need. The scene shifts, revealing a half-human cat girl named Rexus. The world fades to a single point of light. Siha offered Jihoon an apology, but he simply waved it off. He did, however, remind her of the gravity of her decision, that this donation would have a massive impact on their guild. She affirmed her understanding, telling him not to bring it up again. Jihoon gave a small smile, remarking that she truly acted like a guildmaster. We are then transported back to the guild's headquarters. An icy fury radiated from Sihu, her arms crossed tight. Are you serious about bringing Yuri Min into our guild? She demanded. Jihoon met her rage with unshakable calm. The guild is now level 4, he stated simply. It's time to recruit. Besides, nothing is confirmed. Yuri Min is still considering our offer. Sihu's rigid posture softened, realizing it was just a proposal, not a final decision. You actually think you can recruit her? She challenged. Jihoon answered with a confident smirk. We'll never know if we don't even try. Sihu was taken aback, her mind racing to calculate the possibilities. An opportunity to recruit a powerhouse like Yuri was a once-in-a-lifetime chance. She finally relented, giving Jihoon a piece of advice. I'll overlook your methods this time, she warned. But from now on, I expect to be kept in the loop. Jihoon bowed his head. Understood. It won't happen again. Her anger now subsided, Sihu changed the subject. So what's the plan for Arxis's gift? Jihoon held up the glowing crystal. You mean this monocrystal? He asked. Sihu nodded. Yes, that one. Arxus said it was a gift from Carol. Jihoon inspected the gem, his eyes widening slightly. The mana density in this, it's far greater than any crystal I've ever seen. He continued. We could just feed it to Silf, but I see a greater opportunity here. Intrigued, Sihu leaned forward. What kind of opportunity are you talking about? Jihoon's calm smile returned. You'll see soon enough. He then called for Silf, but his tone suddenly hardened. Where do you think you're going? Why are you hiding? He gently cupped the tiny spirit in his hands. We're in an office. There is absolutely no reason to hide. Visibly annoyed, Silf let out a high-pitched shriek that echoed with pure defiance. Jihoon's patience wore thin. Calm down, he ordered. Your whining is giving me a headache. Watching them? Sihu was stunned. When had Jihoon started commanding Silf like this? It was so different from her mother's bond with the spirit which was one of equals. Jihoon presented the monocrystal to the pouting spirit. You like these, don't you? Then have a look. Silf instantly shot towards the crystal, eager to consume it. But Jihoon's hand snapped out, blocking its path. Not so fast. A flicker of frustration crossed his face. You did this exact same thing last time. Do you have any idea how embarrassing that was?
Holding the struggling spirit, he warned, keep this attitude up and you get nothing. Silf let out a tiny whimper as if apologizing.
Jihoon's training began. His first command was sharp and clear. Form 3 polygons. The spirit immediately complied. He issued a second order without pause. Now rotate, clockwise. He continued barking out precise and montan instructions, asserting complete control. Sihu watched a strange feeling in her gut. You don't sound like a teacher. You're more like a drill sergeant. She recalled her mother's contract with Silf, a bond built on mutual friendship and respect.
A wave of discomfort washed over her. To her, it looked like Jihoon was treating the spirit like a common pet.
But she pushed the thought aside. Ultimately, Silf was the one who chose him. After Silf perfectly executed all his commands, Jihoon offered the crystal as a reward. Overflowing with excitement, the spirit lunged for its prize. Jihoon smiled. Easy now, there's no need to rush. In that very instant, a blinding flash of light erupted in a deafening explosion. Jihoon felt a surge of energy in the air. Something was profoundly different. Silf was devouring mana at an unprecedented rate. He recalled Doha's urgent words, to gather as many mana crystals as possible. It was the only way Silf could materialize a body. Then a sharp crack echoed as the crystal fractured. It was happening just as he feared. Before his very eyes, Sil was creating a body exactly as Doha had foretold. A second explosion ripped through the air, unleashing another blinding flash of light. On high alert, Jihoon snapped his eyes shut. When he opened them again, he was no longer in his world. His mind raced, wondering where he was. Suddenly, a voice echoed through the void, informing him that he was inside a virtual space she had constructed. Jihoon whipped around in shock as the voice declared that at long last they could finally talk. Stunned, Jihoon demanded to know how she could speak. The voice calmly explained that the mana crystal he'd offered was powering this temporary conversation within her realm. She issued a stark warning, however. She couldn't maintain this space for long, so their time was short. Jihoon questioned why he was summoned to a place overflowing with mana. The voice's reply was chilling. They were being hunted. Just as she used the crystal to recover her power, their pursuers were doing the very same thing. She warned Jihoon to be wary of everyone around him, especially those he trusted most, for they often have the deepest secrets. Jihoon's heart pounded. Was one of his allies a traitor? The voice admitted she wasn't sure, but promised he would soon discover the truth for himself. She then gave him a sacred mission: protect Sayu, no matter the cost. This was Erna's final will, and the sole reason he was chosen as the successor. Utterly bewildered, Jihoon begged for a clearer answer, but the voice simply insisted that understanding would come with time. As the crystal ball began to crack and splinter, she made one last promise: they would meet again when destiny willed it. Jihoon snapped back to reality, his body trembling from the sheer shock of the encounter he had just endured. Tears streamed down his face as he gripped Sihu's arm. Sihu, alarmed, asked if he was all right, confessing he feared Jihoon might never wake up. Still reeling, Jihoon whispered that he had just met Sil. A confused Sayu asked what he could possibly mean. Just then, an otherworldly energy began to pulse from the crystal once more.
Both of them stared, sensing that something fundamental had changed. The aura, the light it cast, it was completely different now.
A terrifying thought crossed their minds. Silf had evolved into something else entirely. The scene cuts to the UPC headquarters in Korea, where three figures stand in the shadows. One man was intensely focused on the equipment surrounding a strange test rad. The two men who ambushed Jihan, now known as 015 and 013, watched as a vial of mysterious liquid was poured onto the rad. The researchers sneered, remarking that their recent kidnapping attempt was a catastrophic failure. Because of them, they'd lost their main base and the faith of their partners. His voice dripped with venom as he demanded to know who would take responsibility for this disaster. As the rad began to mutate violently, 015 finally spoke, stating his only mission was to provide escort. He explained they deliberately avoided a direct clash with the hero, fearing they would expose their identities. The researcher exploded in frustration, questioning if that was their pathetic excuse. Was that really why they were defeated by a single hero? With a glare that could kill, the researcher reminded them this was not what they were created for.
He warned them in a low, threatening tone that he would not repeat himself again.
As the pressure mounted on 015, the furious researcher commanded them to bring in the hunter from the old days. The two agents instantly complied, ready to obey. But suddenly, an agent burst into the lab, screaming that they had a massive problem. The researcher, alarmed, demanded to know what happened. The agent reported that heroes were storming their location. She confirmed that the legendary Dice Guild had arrived and were arresting everyone in the building. 015, who had been silent, grimly stated this must be a direct order from the association. He gave a sharp command for everyone to be gathered immediately. The scene then shifts to a quiet knock on an office door. Bang enters the room, asking if Doha had summoned him. Doha reveals he heard about the chaos in the Rank 4MA area, acknowledging that Bang's platoon saved the day.
Bang humbly noted that by the time his team arrived, the mutants were nearly wiped out. In response, Doha told him there was no need for modesty.
With that, Doha announced he had a new mission for him. Bang asked if it was another monster area cleanup. Doha's reply was far more serious no. He explained that he needed Bang to arrest the IUPC manager, a man named Maswing Lim, along with his entire staff.
Bang, ever the cautious one, questioned if the Department of Hero Associations had officially authorized such a raid.
He warned that moving without authorization would only create bigger problems for the Dice Guild.
Doha insisted it was a risk they had to take, claiming it was the only way they could ever catch them.
Then he dropped the bombshell. The most critical piece of intelligence. There was a mole deep within the association. A shocked Bang asked if he meant a traitor was working with the IUPC. Doha confirmed it, connecting the mole to the recent surge of heroes involved in dark incidents. He stated firmly that he saw no value in forming pacts with other guilds right now. He warned Bang to be careful, admitting he had a terrible feeling about how this would all unfold. The scene cuts back to Bang inside the captured headquarters. A few of the detained employees were desperately pleading to be released, swearing on their lives that they were innocent. Meanwhile, Bang was lost in contemplation, analyzing Doha's report on the escalating criminal underworld. He scanned the captured thugs. None of them radiated any real threat. Just then, Kim Han-sok appeared. He confirmed his assessment, stating they were all just ordinary civilians. Bang cut straight to the chase. Any sign of mowing Lim? At that moment, one of the captives began to speak, his voice trembling. He warned that if that person found out, everyone there would be slaughtered. Bang strode over to the barely conscious man. "What are you talking about?" he demanded. The man just repeated his grim prophecy. "When they arrive, you're all dead." "Who is coming?" Bang roared, his patience wearing thin. "Stop wasting my time." Finally, the captive answered. He sneered. "When the Blessed Ones arrive, you will finally realize how blind and arrogant you have been." Bang's mind raced. The Blessed Ones. Were they connected to Maswing Lim? Kim Han-sok waved it off as the ramblings of a fanatic. "He's just talking nonsense," he said. "Let's ignore him." But at that instant, two squad members sensed a sinister mana nearby, an aura that felt almost monstrous. And right on cue, 13 and 15 emerged from the shadows. They announced their chilling purpose to exterminate every last hero. 15 smirked. "This is perfect. I was looking for someone to vent my anger on." The three members of Bang's team felt a deep unease. There was something terribly wrong with their enemy's aura. "What is this pressure?" Kim Hans asked. The hooded member warned, "Everyone stay on your guard." With one hand coolly in his pocket, Bang addressed 15. "Do you know the whereabouts of Maswing Lim?" "I do," 15 taunted. "But why are you so desperate to find him?" He didn't wait for an answer, launching himself at the group with blinding speed. "It makes no difference," he shouted. "You'll all become empty husks anyway." In that moment, monstrous larvae began to crawl out from 15's body. The female squad member drew her sword, activating her power. Blue dragon wings slash! Suddenly, a piercing scream cut through the battle. She knew instantly that something had gone wrong. The larvae were attacking their own allies. Why were the creatures turning on their own side? The actions of 13 and 15 were completely erratic and dangerous. In that split second of confusion, 13 appeared beside her and landed a brutal punch to her head. "I'll be the one to save you," he whispered. "Just wait." She cursed herself internally for the momentary distraction. Then 13 unleashed a cataclysmic attack and energy exploded across the area. He casually remarked, "Ho, the hero managed to block that." Seeing an opening, the hooded member shouted, "Now's our chance." Just then, Kim Han-sok dropped from above, slamming a devastating flying kick right into 13's skull. The impact was perfect, driving his head straight into the ground. The three team members stood in stunned silence, staring at 13's motionless body. 15 wondered aloud, "Did you really think that was enough to beat him?" He conceded, I'll admit the Dice Guild's third squad is no joke.
But it's all pointless now, 15 declared. Massoing Lim has already made his escape.
In a flash, Bang was at his sidestaff in hand, moving faster than humanly possible. Do you think you have time to look away? Bang asked, his voice cold. He swung his staff a blow that 15 barely managed to dodge.
15's eyes widened in disbelief. How could he move that fast?
The next thing he knew, he was on the ground, a part of his body gone. 15 coughed up blood, muttering, "The report was wrong. This guy is a monster.
Bang loomed over him. Letting your guard down is a fatal mistake. A single second is all it takes to determine victory or defeat.
Bang turned to his squad and asked, "Is number 13 secured?"
That's enough for today, he commanded. Take the injured and our 2 new prisoners back to the Dice Guild.
But 15 just erupted in maniacal laughter, mocking Bang. You talk a big game about not letting your guard down, but you're making that very mistake yourself.
Bang was shocked that he was still conscious. Just then, 13's body began to stir.
How long do you plan to sleep? 15 snapped. Take it now. He then turned to the heroes with a twisted grin. Consider yourselves honored. You are about to witness the second blessing. The scene shifts to the Dice Guild building, where Sihu and Jihan were keeping watch. Sihu noted how quickly the guild's renovations had been completed.
Well, the guildmaster is an earth elementalist, Jihan reasoned. At that moment, the Dice Guild's assistant manager appeared.
It's been a while, she greeted them. What brings you here? Sihu explained their purpose directly. We came to see Doha. At his name, the assistant apologized. I'm very sorry, but he's not available at the moment.
Jihan took the opportunity to add, Our business is related to Seal FH. Please just inform him that we visited.
Before she could even reply, a frantic shout drew their attention. A man came running toward them, panic etched on his face. We've lost contact with Captain Bang's squad. He gasped for breath, adding, their last known location was the IUPC headquarters.
The assistant's eyes shot wide in disbelief, scolding him for daring to discuss such a secret where rival guilds could be listening.
A knot of dread tightened in her stomach. Why was a crisis of this magnitude unfolding while Doha was away? Seizing his chance, Jihan demanded to know the connection between DICE and the IUPC. After their intense talk, the scene cuts to a helicopter in flight.
The trio soared towards their target, outlining their next move amidst the roar of the rotors.
Jihan shattered the tense silence, asking if they had already breached the IUPC. In a grave tone, the assistant warned him that what she was about to say was top secret. Weeks ago, she explained the Hero Association had mandated a joint investigation of the IUPC, demanding every guild cooperate. The primary target of the entire operation, she revealed, was a woman named Mai Soy Lim. The plan was a coordinated effort between South Korea's 6 most powerful guilds, scheduled to launch in just a few days. Sihu then questioned why the Dice Guild was striking out alone if this was a joint mission. The assistant confessed that Doha doesn't trust the other guilds, convinced that these large-scale operations only breed more chaos and conflict. For that very reason, the Dice Guild broke from the pact, launching their own investigation far ahead of the official schedule. She admitted they sent Bang's squad to infiltrate the building, but they had lost all communication. Sihu instantly pointed out the obvious: sending another team would expose their entire operation. The assistant's head sank, acknowledging they were completely out of options. It was then that Jihan cut in, declaring that they could leave everything to him. Jihan explained his guild was the perfect tool for this job, so small and unknown they'd never be suspected. With just the 2 of them infiltrating the IUPC base would be child's play. He slid the helicopter door open, and then paused, forcing Sihu to halt beside him. A grin spread across Jihan's face. This was the ultimate opportunity to test Sihu's newly awakened powers. He called out to Sihu, ordering her to activate her levitation skill once more. Bewildered, she asked if he really expected her to leap from this height again. Jihan simply shot back that they had no time for hesitation, and then he plunged into the open air. She panicked, yelling for him to give her a moment to prepare the spell. The scene shifts deep inside the IUPC headquarters. A body lies motionless on a floor soaked in crimson. Bang struggled against a wall, spitting out a mouthful of blood. He had no idea what happened. Had he blacked out? He scanned the room to check on his comrades, but his eyes landed on a scene of pure horror. Bang's entire squad had been annihilated. After their clash with the E15 and 13, only their broken bodies remained. As the grim reality crashed down on him, Bang forced himself to his feet, trying to piece together the nightmare. Suddenly, a searing agony ripped through his arm, revealing a deep gash. He let out a tortured scream, crying that this was all his fault. At that moment, 15 appeared from the shadows, casually asking if Bang was just going to cry about it. He mocked him, sneering that Bang was the one who always preached about never losing focus in battle. 15 sported a terrifying new look and declared he'd been waiting for Bang, adding that he couldn't let such a precious crystal user go to waste. He then glanced to his side, asking if his partner agreed. From the darkness, 13 emerged, twisted into a grotesque monster, and growled, "Weak hero." Bang finally understood. They hadn't just killed his squad. They had turned their corpses into monsters. The IUPC's experiments were far worse than he imagined. He knew he had to warn Doha, no matter the cost. But as Bang was lost in his thoughts, Kim Han-sok began to let out a weak sigh. Bang demanded to know if he was even listening, but Kim Han-sok could only apologize, lamenting that as the squad's tank, he should have protected them all. Looking into his teammates' fading eyes, Bang told him it was okay. He could see he was in no shape to even move, let alone speak. Bang tried to offer hope, saying reinforcements were on the way, but Kim Han-sok knew it was pointless. He urged Bang to leave immediately, knowing he himself was already doomed. With his final breaths, he begged Bang to tell the guild what horrors they had unleashed here. At that, Bang ordered him to save his strength, warning that he'd only cough up more blood if he kept talking. While Kim Han-sok pleaded for Bang to survive, the monstrous gorilla known as 13 delivered a devastating blow. Crimson splattered everywhere as Bang watched in frozen horror. The gorilla roared, calling out for more heroes to kill. Consumed by rage, Bang rose to his feet, screaming that he'd send both of those bastards to hell.
But before he could even finish his vow, 13's massive hand was already lunging for him. Bang took the full force of the blow, slamming into the wall with the sickening crunch of breaking bones. 15 and 13 stood victorious, with 15 remarking on how truly tragic it all was.
He ordered 13 not to kill Bang just yet, saying he wanted to present him to the manager. Just then, a calm voice echoed from the entrance declaring that no one was going anywhere. Jihan and Sihu had arrived. Bang stared in disbelief, screaming Jihan's name and demanding to know where he'd been. He yelled that they needed reinforcements and immediate medical attention. Jihan simply took in the bloody scene before him. Realizing words were useless, 13 charged straight for him, vowing to bring his head to the manager. 15 called out a warning, telling his partner to be careful and not to underestimate the newcomer. Jihan told Sihu to stand back calmly, stating he would handle this alone. She stared back, asking if he was absolutely certain he could. As raw power gathered in his hand, Jihan warned her to stay back, fearing he might lose control. He confessed he couldn't yet fully tame the spirit known as Silf. In that very instant, Silf took physical form. Jihan drew his blade and lunged towards 013. A brilliant light flared in his eyes as he felt Silf's overwhelming mana surge through him. As 013 closed in, Jihan's blade shimmered, transformed by the spirit's power. In a flash, Jihan unleashed a devastating strike toward the monstrous gorilla, his attack erupting with an intense glow. This was the Aura Blade, a technique born from pure mana manipulation. It is a force drawn directly from nature, accessible only through a sacred contract with an elemental spirit. While normal elemental magic also comes from nature, that kind of power is a mere imitation compared to true elemental manipulation. This higher art is born from a genuine bond between the element and the contractor, operating on a completely different level. For Jihan, forging that connection was simple, but he faced a far more critical problem. He had almost no mana. Unlike heroes born blessed with immense power, Jihan had started with nothing. Every spell he cast was a gamble with his own life. To survive, he developed a technique of extreme mana efficiency, making his style more like a master swordsman's than a powerful mage's. But now everything had changed. Silf had evolved, allowing her elemental power to take a physical form. With this evolution, Jihan could draw mana directly from the spirit herself, bypassing his own fragile reserves. He had shattered his old limits and become a true wind elementalist. As the dust cleared, 015 shielded his face in utter disbelief. He couldn't comprehend it. How could Jihan defeat 013 with a single blow, especially in its enhanced form? 013 lay broken on the ground. Its body cleaved in two, still called for the hero. Rasping that he must be eliminated under the manager's orders, Jihan's gaze narrowed on the fallen creature. He noticed a sinister purple glow radiating from its mana, the same kind he had seen in the mutants. The realization struck him like lightning. Their bodies had been fused with mutant elements. Jihan then turned his cold gaze to 015, recalling their brief encounter in the alley. He admitted that back then, victory would have been impossible, but warned that now things were different. With Silf summoned, Jihan gripped his sword and advanced. He declared that one way or another, he would unearth the truth behind 015 and his master's twisted plans. Terror gripped 015. Jihan's power was overwhelming. Fighting him now would be suicide. He remembered Maeswing Lim's chilling order to bring back Jihan's head, and knew that returning empty-handed would mean a fate worse than death. His eyes darted to the fallen corpse, a cruel idea sparking in his mind. 015 unleashed his parasitic larvae, which swarmed the body and seized control in an instant. Now holding Bang as a living shield, 015 sneered, asking if this man was important to Jihan. An annoyed Sihu pointed out the obvious, telling Jihan that Bang was now a hostage. A smug grin spread across 015's face as he threatened to snap Bang's neck at the slightest wrong move. Jihan, sword ready, stated he couldn't allow that. He then lowered his weapon, offering a deal. If 015 released Bang, he and Sihu would back off. 015 was ecstatic. Heroes were so easy to manipulate, just threaten one of their own and they always crumble. He figured Maeswing Lim already knew what was happening and that backup would arrive any minute. But in that moment of triumphant distraction, Jihan appeared in a flash directly in his face. Jihan taunted him for falling for such an obvious bluff, as he instantly struck the larvae controlling Bang. Furious 015 screamed, calling him a bastard. Jihan just replied that he was surprised he was so gullible before launching a direct assault on 015. Sliced in 2015 couldn't understand what happened. He was just about to activate his second phase. As the creature made strange gurgling sounds, Jihan stepped forward, pointed his sword at its head, and demanded answers. He demanded to know what the IUPC was planning, who Mei Soing Lim was, and where he could be found. Sweating 015 finally understood why his master saw Jihan as such a threat. He tried a new tactic, urging Jihan to abandon the Hunter Association and join them. He claimed other heroes had already received Mei Soing Lim's blessing, and as a wind elementalist, Jihan's power would become unimaginable. But Jihan cut him off, his voice like ice. He wasn't interested. He demanded to know the IUPC's true goal. 015 just laughed, calling Jihan naive. The boss's grand plan was already in motion, and the whole world would find out soon enough. Meanwhile, Seihu was tending to Bang's injuries, calling out his name as he mumbled in pain.
Bang asked if she was from Epic and why she was there. Seihu explained that Doha's assistant sent her.
Bang was frustrated, muttering about how embarrassing it was since he was the one who had evaluated both of their skills. Seiho told him to stay still, warning him that she had only managed to stop the bleeding temporarily. He still tried to ask if they had defeated the enemy. Seihu simply told him not to worry, that Jihan had taken care of it. Hearing that, Bang felt a chill. Suddenly, he felt a huge surge of mana erupting from one of the bodies. He screamed a warning that one was still alive. But as he focused, he realized the mana was completely unfamiliar, and far stronger than anything else on the battlefield. But just then, a shadow emerged from nowhere right at Jihan's back. Instincts screaming. Jihan spun around his sword, a blur of motion, wondering if another enemy had appeared. But his blade was stopped cold by a single dagger. A woman's voice purred that it was terribly rude to raise a weapon against a lady. Jihan's mind reeled, trying to place who this mysterious woman could possibly be. She told him she admired his style, declaring that he was precisely her type. This only deepened Jihan's confusion. She had just blocked his aura-infused blade as if it were a child's plaything. He took a cautious step back, analyzing her. This was no ordinary fighter. The woman closed the distance, calling him cute and praising his form once more. Then she made her move. Want to be my boyfriend? I promise I'll take very good care of you. A stunned Jihan could only reply, no thank you. His mind raced. Was she another one of the IUPC's twisted experiments? The woman sighed, feigning disappointment. What a shame. I really wanted you. Her gaze then shifted to the broken form of 015 on the ground. She commented that he might catch a cold just lying there. 015 desperately pleaded for another shot, crying that all he needed was one more mana crystal. The woman loomed over him, her voice like ice. You've already consumed 2. That is your absolute limit. She explained that failed test subjects like him could never handle more. But 015 kept begging, insisting he could crush Jihan with just one more crystal. Her patience snapped. She struck 015's body without warning. I hate repeating myself, she said coldly, as Jihan watched in absolute shock. The woman declared that those who can't even win a simple fight deserve no second chances. She continued her relentless assault on 015, before turning her chilling gaze back to Jihan. I'm curious to see what you do now, she warned, but you only get one chance. She wanted to see if he would crack under the pressure. After landing several more brutal blows, the woman slowly rose. Jihan demanded to know why she would attack an ally. She responded with a mocking laugh. Are you feeling sorry for this thing? Such compassion is utterly useless and pathetic. The woman declared that failures like him were dead weight baggage that needed to be eliminated before they dragged everyone else down. With a terrifying smile, she pointed her dagger at Jihan and said, That's quite enough talk. She charged in a flash, snarling that she couldn't stand people who didn't know when to be quiet. As the dagger flew toward his neck, Jihan commanded Silf to block the attack. The woman looked surprised, noting that Jihan was full of tricks and had a peculiar companion. But her words were cut short by a powerful counterattack from Jihan that sent her flying. With a devastating blow, Jihan slammed her straight into a wall. He stood firm, bracing for the next attack. Knowing that strike wasn't nearly enough, he alerted Silf that the woman was still on her feet. Thinking he'd bought a precious few seconds, Jihan considered his next move. But a voice rose from the debris. And just where do you think you're going? She said it had been a long time since she'd found someone so entertaining, and mentioned that someone named Jerry was very interested. Jihan knew his attack hadn't been effective. He had no choice but to face her head-on. The woman advanced, declaring that Jerry's little game wasn't over yet. Gripping his sword, Jihan called on Silf to imbue his blade once more. As she brought her weapon crashing down in an overhead strike, she taunted Jihan. So what's your next move? Jihan swung his sword, aiming to cut her in two. But something felt wrong. It was just an afterimage. As he searched for her, Jihan felt a killing intent flare up right behind him, her dagger raised high. He barely blocked the strike in time, knowing that without his skills, he would have been in mortal danger. He thought to himself that she fought like a true assassin. Jihan steeled his resolve, certain she couldn't dodge his next attack. And in that very moment, a system window appeared, showing an 85% chance of success. but she left another afterimage, using the trick to escape downward.
She had dodged him yet again. Jihan realized her movements were completely erratic and unpredictable.
The woman remarked that it was a close call. If she'd been a fraction of a second slower, she would have ended up just like the other two. She knew Jihan had already disposed of 013 and 015. He understood then that if he didn't stop her now, she would become a terrifying threat down the line. Weighing his options, Jihan decided to risk it all on a single final blow. This was his only shot. The woman prepared for the clash admitted she'd never witnessed an aura quite like his before. She charged at Jihan, declaring that she would always be ready for a fight with him. Jihan, filled with determination, announced he would obliterate the entire area just to see how she'd escape this time. He launched a furious storm of attacks, but was cut short. The manager had suddenly materialized between them, ordering them to cease fighting at once. Both Jihan and the woman froze, turning in utter disbelief. The manager shot back that his orders were to evaluate the scene, not to ignite a war. Adjusting his glasses, the man introduced himself as Ma Xionglim. He acknowledged Jihan, clearly aware of his status within the Epic Guild. Dagger still gleaming, the woman barely acknowledged the manager's presence. Jihan demanded to know what he was doing here. She scoffed, insisting she had it all under control, and questioning why he even bothered to show up. The manager sarcastically shot back, asking if this chaotic scene was her idea of a solution. She retorted that you can't fix anything without breaking a few things first. While they argued, the manager scanned the wreckage, asking for the status of 013 and 015. The woman coolly confirmed both targets were eliminated. She added that 015 had the audacity to beg for another mana crystal as he died. The manager's voice dripped with contempt, calling them pathetic. He ordered Jerry to retrieve the mana crystals. Their mission was over. Jerry protested, eager for more action, but Jihan cut her off. Nobody is going anywhere. He declared them both Class A criminals, and they were officially under arrest. He warned them that backup from the Hero Association was on its way, so they should surrender quietly and avoid making more trouble. But the manager simply burst out laughing. He revealed he was counting on those reinforcements, claiming everything was unfolding exactly as he had planned. The manager's smile twisted into a psychotic grin, as a malicious laugh escaped his lips. In an instant, an overwhelming aura of mana exploded from him. The immense pressure slammed Jihan to his knees. He choked out that no mere human should wield such terrifying power. Looking down on the fallen hero, the manager revealed his true objective. He'd intended to lure all 6 major guilds to this location, but the Dice Guild's reckless solo act had ruined his grand design. Even so, he considered the outcome a partial success. A bewildered Jihan asked if he was a mole from the start, insisting no one in the association would ever approve such a monstrous plan. The manager cryptically confirmed that the association doesn't just bow to his will. Jerry then chimed in, mocking Jihan's naivety. She revealed the shocking truth: the association has a traitor. Jihan was left stunned, his world crumbling around him. The scene shifts to the office of the association's president. Inside, President Junyang slammed a file onto his desk. He declared that the time had finally arrived. Junyang then walked out, locking the door tight behind him. Just then, a voice echoed from the shadows, asking what the rush was. The figure that stepped into the light was Doha. He stared down the president with cold eyes and asked how the traitor was faring. Though clearly terrified, the president tried to feign ignorance. But before he could utter another lie, a pillar of earth shot up from the floor, smashing him in the face. A second one followed immediately after. The president writhed in agony, screaming, demanding to know why he was being attacked. Doha didn't hesitate to lay his accusation bare. He explained that only one person could manipulate Korea's 6 great guilds while leaking hero data to the IUPC. And that person was the president. Trapped, the president desperately insisted it was all a grave misunderstanding. As he struggled beneath the crushing rock, he gasped, asking how long Doha had known. Doha's reply was immediate and ice cold. He never trusted him. He explained that someone so fundamentally corrupt leading the association had always felt wrong. Greater than music. Done playing games, the president unleashed his true power. As demonic wings erupted from his back, he mocked Doha, asking if he really thought he'd climb to the top by simply flattering heroes. He showed off his monstrous new form, declaring it a product of IUPC technology. Something far beyond a mere hero's understanding. Doha realized it instantly. The transformation was fueled by mana crystals harvested from mutants. The president's voice boomed with arrogance, declaring the age of heroes finished. He called them outdated relics that deserved to be erased. Doha calmly raised an immense earth wall to defend, but the president tore right through it, laughing at the futile gesture. The president charged, roaring that Doha was nothing more than a Class 1 hero. Doha carefully observed his opponent's wild power. He sidestepped a fatal blow, and in a single fluid motion seized the president's arm. Doha stated coolly that he never underestimates a close-quarters fight. Then, with a sudden surge of strength, Doha ripped the president's arm from its socket. The president let out an exaggerated scream, but Doha knew it was just an act. Then, with a horrifying shriek, the president unleashed a terrifying new ability. Deep Pulse. Doha felt the sheer unholy force of the attack, sensing the same energy as the demonic wings. In that moment, he knew.
The president was no longer human.
The blast tore the room asunder, escalating the battle to a new level. As the smoke cleared over a massive crater, the association president raised his hand in victory. He sneered down at the rubble.
He mocked Doha, asking if this was the true extent of his legendary power, and gloated about how the tides had turned.
Drunk with power, the president twisted the knife, sneering that Doha's guild members were crushed like bugs, all because of his pathetic leadership. He even taunted him with the idea that Bang was in grave danger. But as a smug grin spread across his face, a steady voice cut through the air.
Doha appeared completely unscathed. He clicked his tongue in disgust, muttering about how he hated demonic wings. The president stared in disbelief, demanding to know how he was unharmed.
Doha's answer was simple. A true hero is always prepared to lay down his life. He added that underestimating Bang was their biggest mistake. While the president's little monster trick was cute, it was far from enough. Then Doha called out for Mumu. The president watched confused as the entire building began to shake violently. The structure started to crumble all around him. In a panic, he screamed that something underground was swallowing them whole. Doha just mocked him, throwing his own arrogant words right back in his face. Weren't elementalists supposed to be a thing of the past? He explained that this technique uses mana to create an inescapable prison, wishing him the best of luck trying to break free. Yet despite it all, the president burst into maniacal laughter. Annoyed, Doha demanded to know what he found so funny. The president revealed his true plan. Using a fake investigation as a cover, he'd sent the city's most powerful heroes far away. He then declared with a twisted smile that the main event was just getting started. The scene shifts to a peaceful street where citizens walked without a care.
A small boy suddenly pointed to the sky, trying to get his mother's attention. Before she could see what he was pointing at, a chilling dread washed over her. In an instant, a horrifying monster appeared before them.
Absolute chaos erupted as terrified screams filled the air. The mother instinctively shielded her child with her body. But amidst the panic, a heroine named Mi So-young arrived. She told the mother and her son that everything would be all right now, vowing to protect them. At the same time, monsters began appearing all across the city, spreading waves of terror. A gigantic spider chased down civilians until a hero with a massive hammer appeared. He obliterated the creature with a devastating skill. Colossus impact. Watching this chaos unfold from the sidelines was Kang Jihan. He was done just sitting around. He saw this as the perfect stage to make his move. The battle for the city intensified as heroes fought desperately against the monster swarm.
Among them was the red-haired warrior Guts, who unleashed a furious strike against one of the beasts.
As Guts tore through his enemies, he wondered where this endless horde was coming from. He figured the IUPC had orchestrated this striking while the city's best defenders were away. But a sudden ambush snapped him back to the fight. Guts decided it didn't matter who was behind this invasion. This was his golden opportunity to become a Class 1 hero, and he was going to seize it. From a high rooftop, the president watched the heroes mobilize, shocked at how quickly they had gathered. Doha then revealed the truth. He was the one who had personally summoned every hero back to the city. Stunned, the president asked how that was even possible. Doha calmly added that he'd also taken care of the agents at the IUPC base. At that very moment, a figure appeared levitating high above the building. Doha revealed he had sent the one person he trusted most to handle this. That man, Baek Cheon, landed softly before them. He casually admired the building, remarking on how extravagant it was. Doha then reluctantly admitted that Baek Cheon was in fact stronger than him. Baek Cheon's arrival sent shockwaves through the area. Both the manager and his companion watched his every move. With his hands in his pockets, Baek Cheon casually asked if they were enjoying the party, warning that he was about to crash it. Everyone was stunned by the sudden appearance of this legendary hero. All attention was now fixed on him. Standing before them was Baek Cheon, the master of Red Dragon Korea's #1 guild. He was known nationwide as the strongest hero alive. The very air crackled with tension from his presence alone. Facing the manager, Baek asked, "You're Ma Song-lim." Lim angrily demanded to know why someone of his stature was here, while the woman beside him simply commented that he was handsome. The manager warned Baek about the monster outbreak, stressing that a hero of his caliber should be on the front lines, not here. But Baek simply shrugged, saying there was no need to worry. He was just stopping by and assured them that his underlings were handling the monsters he'd left behind. His gaze then shifted to Jihan, noticing the unexpected visitor. Baek remarked that Doha had told him all about Jihan. Tilting his head, he asked what brought him here and if he was allied with Ma Song-lim. Jihan immediately denied it, sensing that Baek's mana was on another level, entirely far more intense than Ma Song-lim's. Thinking back to the fate of the Dice Guild's heroes, Jihan knew the odds were not in his favor. Baek, however, looked slightly disappointed. "I expected something different," he sighed, "but I suppose it no longer matters." He then began to cast a powerful ability called Reverie, revealing his plan to take every single one of them with him. As his mana exploded outwards, the manager could only whisper that he'd only heard rumors of Baek's legendary power. He realized with sheer terror that Baek intended to erase them all from existence. In a blind panic, the manager screamed at Jerry to forget the mana crystals and just run. Baek, now wielding a staff, coolly informed him that escape was impossible. They were already caught within his domain. The Palace of Dreams. The manager realized the cityscape had vanished, and Jerry murmured that it felt like they were dreaming. Beck explained that this was a reality he had personally woven, and that he alone held the key to their escape. Jihan was still on his knees, his mind reeling. How could anyone wield power on this monstrous scale? This suffocating presence? It was just like Sil's. He quickly triggered his analysis skill to decipher Beck's magic. A system window appeared, explaining that Beck weaves illusions, where reality and fantasy merge. As the crushing pressure lifted, Jihan rose to his feet, He strode towards the manager, declaring that this farce was over. But in the blink of an eye, his surroundings warped, placing him right beside Beck. Beck chuckled. So eager to strike the second you see an opening. Reeling from the sudden shift, Jihan was met with Beck's mocking voice. Don't tell me you can't even grasp what just happened. I merely shifted your position. Beck told him to look behind him, warning that without his intervention, Jihan would already be a corpse. And that's when Jihan saw it. Nightmarish creatures were tearing their way out of the manager's back. He stood there completely frozen, wondering what in the world those things were. The manager calmly removed his glasses, admitting this wasn't part of his plan. He mused that he always knew he'd face a hero of this caliber one day. With that, his energy skyrocketed, and his body twisted into something truly monstrous.
Countless tentacles erupted from his flesh, blurring into a chaotic mass. The price for absorbing an insane amount of mana crystals.
This transformation was the very pinnacle of the Mizong Group's research. Meanwhile, Beck's signature ability, the Dream Palace, allowed him to cast magic without any limits on its range. But even this seemingly perfect power held a couple of critical weaknesses. The first flaw, an astronomical mana cost. The Dream Palace consumes so much energy that most mages couldn't sustain it for a single minute, but Beck was an exception. His vast, almost limitless mana reserves allowed him to completely shatter that restriction. It's exactly why they call him Korea's Archmage. But his ability possessed a second, more fatal flaw. The user must always maintain their distance. If an enemy breaches that personal space, the illusion shatters, leaving Beck utterly defenseless. A guaranteed defeat.
To counter this, Beck's senses were always honed to a razor's edge alert for any surprises.
And yet, despite his caution, Jerry had slipped past his guard. It wasn't a failure of his senses, though. He had simply dismissed her as completely irrelevant. Now Beck wondered how she moved so fast. What kind of skill was this? There was only one explanation. Glancing over his shoulder, Beck remarked, I never would have suspected. You're an Azian. A hint of surprise crossed Jerry's face. I'm impressed you even know of my people? Beck's reply was chilling. I should. I'm the one who annihilated them. 14 years ago, the Azians had declared war on humanity, plunging the entire world into chaos.
Beck explained how the special unit he was part of hunted her kind to extinction, or so he thought. With her blade cold against his throat, Jerry listened to his disbelief.
He demanded to know how she survived, asking if this was all for revenge. Jerry's only response was a cold, empty laugh. Revenge, she scoffed. Why would I avenge a pathetic race that was too weak to even survive a war? She then revealed her true ambition to watch the world burn in chaos, blood, and screams. Beck noted, spoken like a true Azian. But Jerry warned him, I can't let you kill Mizong Lim. My boss has grand plans for him. Beck's eyes narrowed. So your master is still alive? Jerry just giggled. Maybe, maybe not. She then declared that their little chat was over. She lunged for the final blow, but Beck was unfazed. I've learned what I needed to know, he said calmly. You are no longer my concern. Just then, Beck warned that someone far more dangerous had arrived. And in a flash, Jihan appeared. Jihan knew that at this range, Beck's illusions were useless against Jerry. But that didn't mean he couldn't attack another target. Jihan unleashed his aura blade, and the resulting explosion tore through the dreamscape. Beck smirked. You should really be more careful. Jihan shot back that he didn't need to hold back. He knew Beck could handle it. Looking at the fractured dream world, Beck was genuinely impressed. So this was the power that could rival Doha. Now he finally understood Doha's strange obsession with this man.
Jihan then pointed out that Jerry was still alive. Beck wasn't surprised, noting that Azians are notoriously difficult to kill.
Jerry staggered to her feet, sneering that it was time to make her exit, and tore a rift in space itself. Beck immediately shouted a warning to Jihan. Don't attack her! That rift could pull us all in! A chilling thought struck him. Jerry somehow understood the secrets of his dream palace.
But that was impossible. That magic was a secret shared between only two souls. As if on cue, Jerry announced her exit, promising that their paths were destined to cross again.
The portal swallowed her in an instant, leaving Jihoon to grit his teeth in pure frustration. She had slipped right through his fingers. Beck, however, insisted the mission was a success. They had gained crucial intelligence. The Azians were still out there, and now they were working with the IUPC to plunge the world back into chaos. Jihoon questioned him. Did the IUPC truly shatter the treaty and ignite this rebellion? Beck brushed it aside. No time for that now, he declared. I'm heading to Seoul, and you're coming with me. When Jihoon brought up Bang and Sayu still being trapped, Beck promised that Red Hall reinforcements were already on their way. Meanwhile, in Seoul, the city screamed under the siege of monsters. An IUPC janitor was hiding behind a car, terrified, wondering where these nightmares had crawled from. He frantically called Siho, "Where are you? Why did you just leave me here?" Siho's voice was strained. "Monsters are swarming the civilian zones. Find cover and wait for the heroes." But it was too late. A beast towered over him from behind. In a flash, a figure intervened, obliterating the monster with ease, remarking, "Korea has really lost its mind while I was away." Siho knew that voice instantly. It belonged to her father, Kim Jong-won, a legendary former Class 3 hero of Korea. And so a violent tear in space ripped open the sky, its blinding light distorting the very air. From it, Baek and Jihoon stumbled out, disoriented from the chaotic journey. Baek quickly regained his footing. A sigh of relief escaped him as he announced, "We made it." Jihoon, however, was pale and trembling. The moment his feet touched solid earth, his stomach churned, and he lost it. Baek watched this with a chuckle, teasing, "You're looking a little green there." For a veteran like him, a little dimensional travel was nothing. Still heaving, Jihoon shot him a fiery glare. "That was absolutely horrible," he snarled. He said it felt like his entire body had been twisted inside out, which only made Baek roar with laughter. But as Jihoon finally composed himself, he knew something was terribly wrong. The air was thick with despair, heavy and suffocating. In the distance, the skyline was a graveyard of ruined buildings. Jihoon turned to Baek, his voice strained. "Where are we?" Crossing his arms, Baek surveyed the devastation and explained grimly, "This is Seoul. Or what's left of it. This is the price of the IUPC's betrayal."
Jihoon's face turned to stone, and raw fury burned in his voice as he demanded, "Why? Who could possibly do something like this?"
What twisted reason could ever justify this level of destruction? Baek's own anger simmered beneath a measured calm. "The reports didn't do this justice," he muttered. He warned Jihoon to stay sharp. Creatures were surely lurking in these ruins. Switching gears, Baek turned to business, asking if Jihoon knew anything about the Hero Association's current situation. He proposed their next move. "We need to find Doha at the Dice Guild. He'll have intel, and we can form a plan." Jihoon agreed, his senses on high alert. His skill window had already prophesied a fateful encounter here, so he had to be ready for anything. And as if summoned by fate itself, a voice called out from the shadows. It was Doha. "Jigoon already filled me in," he said, his tone serious. "But you're not the only ones I've been waiting for." Just then, more figures began to emerge from the ruins.
Junkong of the Warriors Guild and Na Sung of the Snowball Guild appeared moments later.
Junkong grumbled about how long it took, but Na Shung seemed far more interested. "So that's Jihoon, is it?" she asked with intrigue. Baek simply grinned. "Well, this saves us the trouble of tracking down the guilds." Jihoon, however, felt the immense weight of the moment.
Before him stood the Masters of the Warriors and Snowball Guilds, hailed as the greatest heroes in all of Korea. He contemplated the gravity of the crisis and what would come next. Suddenly, Doha's assistant rushed forward, relief washing over her face at the sight of him. "What about Bang, the rest of the squad?" she asked, her voice trembling. Jihoon's words were heavy. "By the time I got there, most were already gone. Only Bang survived, but he's gravely injured. Red Hall is taking him for treatment now."
She couldn't believe it. How could this happen? Before Jihoon could answer, an impatient Doha cut in. He stared down Baek, demanding answers. With a heavy heart, Baek admitted his regret. "I wish I could have arrived sooner to save more of them. But despite this tragedy," he continued, "their sacrifice was not in vain. We've uncovered intel on the IUPC that changes everything." Baek's next words sent a shockwave through the assembled leaders. "The Azians are still alive." He explained his battle with an Azian named Jerry, a warrior with a concealment skill that rendered her perfectly invisible. Jerry also confirmed, Baek pressed on, that their leader, the one we all believe to be dead, is very much alive. Doha was stunned into silence, while the other guildmasters erupted with outrage and disbelief. The air grew thick with tension as the leaders began to argue, dredging up a dark history they had all sworn to bury. Doha finally spoke, his voice dangerously low as he locked eyes with Baek. "Are you absolutely certain about this?" The two men unleashed their auras, and the very air crackled under the immense pressure. Jihoon could only watch, wondering about the source of this deep-seated conflict. His skill had foretold an unexpected meeting, but this was something else. And it was at that exact moment that a man with fiery red hair made his entrance. Guts had arrived. Janho pointed, his voice grim. Before them stood the leaders of the 6 great guilds. Guts seethed with irritation, snapping at his subordinate for daring to appear before rank 1 heroes. But she was simply thrilled to witness this moment, chaos and all. Guts declared that one day the Kuros Guild would test its might against these titans. Meanwhile, his underlings bickered amongst themselves. One of them gestured towards Jihoon, who was conversing with the guildmasters. The sight of Jihoon ignited bitter memories for Guts. He remembered casting him out, claiming it was for his own good. A lie ordered by his superiors. But the real reason was far more cruel. When confronted, Jihoon had only one request: the truth.
Guts finally spat out the venomous words. He called Jihoon useless, a liability whose meddling was crippling the squad.
Jihoon's response was chillingly calm. He thanked Guts for his honesty, and accepted his fate without a fight. But as he turned to leave, he left Guts with a parting curse, a prophecy that he would never reach rank 1 no matter how he struggled. The words struck like a dagger, and Guts erupted in a storm of curses. Just then, another figure appeared searching for him. It was Seo's father, who urgently needed to speak with Jihoon about a critical matter. The tense summit between the 6 great generals concludes, and the scene shifts.
Now operatives from the Red Hall emerge on the scene. Armed with rifles, they take their positions, braced for the unknown. Moments later, a voice crackles through the comms. They've located their target.
The objective is a survivor from the Dice Guild. The commander's orders are clear secure, the target unharmed. But a question lingers in his mind. Where is the other person they were hunting? Wasn't there supposed to be a woman with him? Suddenly, shimmering threads of magic erupt from the shadows, ensnaring all 3 of them. As confusion turned to alarm, one of the captured men urged his comrades to remain calm. He dismissed it as a simple binding spell. Their energy-draining armor should make short work of it. And yet, the technique felt hauntingly familiar.
From the darkness, Saihao revealed herself.
She demanded to know who they were. Were they sent by the IUPC? To her shock, one of the captured men whispered her name. Her guard shot up. How did he know her name? In response, the man removed his helmet, revealing a familiar face. He confessed his own surprise. Their rescue target was none other than Siho herself. He introduced himself as Yan Jing, a fellow student from their days at the Hero Academy. The focus shifts back to Guts and Shiho's father. Guts confronts the older man, his voice laced with suspicion. What was a civilian doing in a place like this? The man claimed to be merely passing by, mentioning they had just been discussing Jihan.
Guts' suspicion deepened. How could he be a simple civilian? The entire city had been locked down for hours.
He demanded answers. Why was he in a war zone? And what was his true identity? Siho's father noted Guts' aggressive tone, but conceded the point. He calmly explained he had no documents to prove his identity. Just then, the cleaner from the Epic Guild intervened. He called for everyone to wait, promising a full explanation. He revealed his role, the manager of Mongtang, a monster cleaning service partnered with the Epic Guild. And then he dropped the bombshell. His name was Jihan Kim, father of the Guildmaster. Sam Lim's eyes widened in recognition. No wonder they looked so alike. When asked who he was, Sam Lim's answer was simple. He was an absolute legend among mages, a hero from the Great War 10 years ago. But he vanished from the world of heroes to pursue his research. His name, she added, was known to every mage in existence. A bit flustered, Jihan Kim admitted that while the stories were a bit exaggerated, they were mostly true.
Overcome with awe, Sam Lim bowed deeply. She asked for his autograph, calling it a tremendous honor. The official with Guts was convinced that was all the proof he needed. Guts, however, was just annoyed. Why was everyone fawning over this so-called legend?
But the tense atmosphere suddenly froze over. Beck had appeared, as if from thin air. He commented that Guts' deadly glare was giving him chills, warning him he'd get wrinkles if he kept it up. Beck's sudden appearance sent a shockwave through the crowd. A bewildered Guts demanded to know how. How did Beck appear without anyone sensing his presence? Beck sneered, saying he'd been watching from afar. He dismissed them as mere rookies from the Kiro Guild. Then his sharp gaze turned to Jihan Kim, demanding to know why he had returned to Korea. Jihan greeted him calmly. It had indeed been a long time.
Beck's eyes narrowed with suspicion. Jihan hadn't set foot in Korea for years. Yet he appears now just as the nation faces a crisis.
Jihan simply explained he was here for family matters, and hoped Beck would understand his reasons. He revealed the heartbreaking truth. It was the anniversary of his wife's passing, and he had come to honor her memory with Shiho. Wary Beck teleported to Jihan's side in a flash, yelling, "You fool! Why didn't you tell me?" The others could only gape, stunned by his sudden appearance. Beck's tone softened, a rare sight. "It's been too long," he said, inviting Jan for a drink after all this was over. But Jan respectfully declined, claiming he wouldn't have the time. At that moment, a cleaner was called, and Jan's eyes widened at the familiar voice. He rushed toward June, a wide grin on his face. "It's been years, man." A startled June stared back, asking what he was doing here. June's gaze then fell upon Guts, whose real name was Hyun Kim. Guts simply clicked his tongue in annoyance. Jihoon scanned the gathering of old comrades, realizing they were all warriors fighting against the city's encroaching monsters. He approached Guts with a calm expression. "It's been a while," he greeted, mentioning he saw Guts' platoon defending the city walls.
Guts scoffed, his voice dripping with contempt. "Don't get cocky, you little brat," he sneered. "Stop acting like you belong with the true S ranks." Guts' eyes narrowed. "I see right through you, trying to leech off the power of your superiors."
"You'll never reach our level," he declared. "So wake up from your pathetic dream." Jihoon retorted coldly. "You haven't changed, still as arrogant as a child." Then, with a smirk, Jihoon's words cut like a knife. "No, Guts. You're the one who will never reach rank 1 no matter how desperately you claw for it." That was the final straw. Guts exploded with killing intent, lunging at Jihoon. "You worthless piece of—" But before he could land a blow, a shadow fell over him. Doha appeared from nowhere, his hand clamped around Guts' head, demanding to know what foolishness he was up to. Doha surveyed the scene with chilling amusement. To think a warrior like you could be provoked so easily. He then turned to Jihoon. How did you endure his whining for so long? Jihoon simply bowed his head, thanking Doha for the intervention. But Guts was seething, unable to believe someone could look down on him with such utter disdain. He silently swore that Jihoon would pay dearly for this humiliation. Just then, Majinho greeted a man named Mr. Kim, noting how much time had passed.
We were all just rookies back then, Majinho reminisced. And now look at us, the most powerful guildmasters in all of Korea.
But Doha cut him off sharply. This is no time for a touching reunion. Jihoon's father agreed, his voice grim. I've been tracking the mana signals. The Azians are finally beginning their invasion. His next words sent a chill down their spines. I've tracked their energy across all of Japan. Korea is not their only target. He declared with grave certainty, the entire world is bracing for the Azians' return. A global war was on the horizon. A hint of despair touched Beck's voice. Do you still not believe what I told you? But Jihoon's father ignored him, his gaze locking onto his son. Is it truly you? It's me, father, Jihoon confirmed. In that instant, a system window materialized before his very eyes. Target confirmed, it read. You have found the one you seek, Jihoon's father. Jihoon's mind raced. Why had his power guided him to this man? Jihoon's father explained that June had already briefed him, thanking the heroes for shattering the IUPC's wicked plans. There is much to discuss, he said, his voice heavy, but that can wait. He then ordered Jihoon and Sihu to stay out of the coming battle. Confused, Jihoon demanded to know why. And then his father revealed the horrifying truth. The Azians, their true targets are Silf, and my daughter Seiyu. As those words hung in the air, the sky was split by the sound of an approaching helicopter.
A voice boomed from a loudspeaker announcing their presence. We are arriving now. All personnel prepare for landing.